has brought her Peasant Cube. Emma, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Emma, give me the 30-second elevator pitch for your cube.
So first off, hey, did you know I had a cube? Because that's how you have to start these conversations, right? So I'm someone who loves wrecking faces with commons and uncommons, and my cube is full of those. So you've got some really powerful cards. You have stuff like Raven Inspector, Sylvan Library, Demonic Tutor, hell, like Force of Wills in there. Yes, that was an uncommon at one point. You may have not known that, but you do now. Um, This cube is ideal for people who are nostalgic for really old cards. You know, stuff like Spiritmonger, Centaur Glade, if you ever heard of that one, Shadowmaid Infiltrator. Or you just want to know why these cards are really good, right? You've seen this card, like, why is this random uncommon like really good? I don't understand it. You can play my cube, you can find out. Um, Another reason this queue's really good, it encapsulates like a very traditional limited experience. It's very creature permanent heavy. So you've got to do combat maths. I'm sorry if that's not your thing. But it's very permanent heavy. It's very old school magic in that sense. There's no hard combos or silly combos or anything like that. You're probably going to have some PTSD from playing my cube because there's a lot of like uncommon mythic rares, you know, the limited bombs that you get. So you might see some of those from when you played FNM way back when and got decimated by, you know, a River Hopo in Hour of Devastation Limited. But yeah, I hope you get the chance to play my cube. It's at the main event at CUBECON. And yeah, check it out.
What would you say is your cube's origin story?
So it all began when the pandemic hit. And like everyone else at the time, I was pretty bored. I had nothing to do. Um, and before the pandemic hit and when everything decided to stop, um, I always wanted to make a cube. I've audibled it in my head for ages, but just never sat down to do it properly just because of like time, work, whatever. It's just like one of those things you put on the shelf and you forget about it. And when the pandemic hit and I had like free time, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna design this cube. It's something I want to do, and I have the time to do it, so let's do it. And as someone who comes from a limited and pauper background, I've always loved low rarity environments, especially pauper. I'm on the pauper format panel. I love playing with like commons and uncommons. It's my thing. It's my brand. Um, and I've always loved the idea of making a peasant cube because there is a limitation in mind. You're not playing with these fancy mythics and mythic rares. And a lot of the times, these commons and uncommons are pretty good. People just don't realize it, right? When it came to building my cube, like a lot of people who start with peasant, I use Eric Plug's really good peasant cube as like a baseline just to get like the foundation because building a cube from scratch seems really, really daunting, right? So during this time, I just basically picked up Eric's cube, made some changes. I rounded it up to 450 because 433 seemed really weird to me. And then over time, once things started opening up again post-pandemic or post-lockdown in this case, I added and switched cards, and it became my own thing over time. Um, Another thing to why I wanted to build the cube. To me, Cube is like a Magic the Gathering board game where you've designed it, you created this experience you can have with friends and strangers, right? And if there ever comes a point where I quit Magic, it's not my job anymore, it's not what I do or what I enjoy doing, I can still have this cube and play it with my friends, old Magic friends, whenever. It's like a time capsule. I think that's the best way to describe it.
Emma, tell me about some of your favorite moments that you've had with the cube. Any exciting developments you made or anything you might have kind of missed?
So in terms of like gameplay experience, like from a personal, when I played my cube and something I enjoy doing. So I'm a bit of a degenerate when it comes to playing Magic. So one of my favorite plays to do is to have a Flicker Wisp and cast it, and then target the opponent's bounce land because that's the kind of Magic player I am. Um, in terms of like overall, what I my favorite moments in the cube is just to see people enjoying. Like I can create an experience that people are enjoying. People are investing 2 to 3 hours of their day, and they go, you know what, I want to play Emma's Cube. It's really fun. And to me, that's like a huge like pat on the back as someone who designs Cube. It's like it's kind of a responsibility to go, yeah, I'm creating this thing, not just for me and for my vision of magic, but for what other people can enjoy, right? And I always find that quite humbling. It's just a really nice compliment, right? And another thing that I love is when someone plays with a random card and they go, how the hell was this an uncommon? For whatever reason, because people just don't realize it. That's always a fun experience because it evokes emotion and excitement. Um, and a lot of people haven't played Magic pre like Fire Design, which is what 2019 and before. There's a lot. The Magic scene is so much bigger than it was, has been in the last 4 or 5 years. So seeing people playing with these what seems to be like mopey commons and uncommons aren't actually that mopey, and people just like, wow, this card's incredible. I need to put this in like my commander deck or something like that. It's just a really cool experience and just something that I hope I can keep providing with the cube going forward.
What do you believe people might not notice about your cube on first glance?
So, as I mentioned earlier, the cube is very permanent focused. So it's very focused on creatures. It's focused on permanence. There's no like big spells, stormy combos, or anything like that. Anything like that. It's very black and white, limited, honest magic, that kind of thing. Um, Another thing that you probably miss on first glance, there's no mana rocks, or there aren't many mana rocks in the cube, so you don't have your talismans or your signets, and that's a deliberate omission. Just because I want the game to have inevitability, I want people to like force aggression. I want people to attack. I don't want these games going on forever, right? Because quicker the games, the more you can cube. And I think that's just a really good testament to old school magic. And another thing people won't notice, going back to my previous answer, is just like random old cards that people don't quite grasp. Like these are really good. So there's a card called Grizzly Fate in my cube. It's a green uncommon. It makes a load of bears, and people are like, why is this card that makes bears really good? And once you play with the card, you'll kind of figure it out. Just because you're making all these creatures, you're making all these permanents, and the more permanents you have in this cube, the better you will do. So just like these random uncommons that you think, wait, why is this in here? It's probably quite powerful. Yeah.
What would you say is your favorite card to open up and build an entire deck around?
So my favorite card to draft ever is Fragrant Inspector, as people would know, as J-Bro would know. Fragrant Inspector is a fantastic card. But in terms of a card that is great to build around and to make a really strong like strategy out of, my favorite is Soul Herder. I'm a big fan of like Azori's Blink style decks. So anything that could help me snowball with all these permanents that I can keep flickering back into play is a really good strategy for me. I love Soul Herder that much. I have a Pauper EDH deck around Soul Herder, which is the same thing. It's just classic Blink. And Pauper EDH is where you have an uncommon commander, but the rest of the deck is all commons. And it makes for a really fun strategy because a lot of the good Blink cards happen to be common. And if you didn't know, Emma Mass is just figuring out how many times I can either cast a Fragrant Inspector or blink it back into play through playing stuff like, Azorius Blink or Soul Herder. Like that, if I can keep flickering Fragrant Inspector, I'm just having a good time.
Emma, what does your cube have to say about Magic the Gathering?
I'm going to be really cliche for a moment, and this is something that Mark Rosewater has said often, that restriction breeds creativity. I'm a big fan of working with something that has a limitation. So I like to see how much I can like push that, right? How high can I push that ceiling on that limitation? Um, and I feel that way about my Peasant Cube. There's like a whole history of like uncommon mythic bombs, in limited that they kind of what's the word I'm looking for? They kind of like dominate the limited format they're in. And once you take that away and put them in a cube, it creates a different sort of environment, right? Mm-hmm. And you can still have these really powerful environments with commons and uncommons, than with rares or mythic rares half the time. And it surprises people. I just like having that limitation because the way that Magic design works now, that cards are getting more powerful. So at some point, the commons and uncommons have to get powerful too. And it's just a really fun way to have this ceiling of just no rares or mythic rares for me. It's really fun.
Emma, thank you so much.
Hello, I'm Jamie Regatti, and I'm here with Emma Partlow.
Hi, good
And
morning.
we are on the top 64 here at CubeCon. That's what's happening today. We're going to be covering the draft that is Emma's.
My Peasant Cube.
Yes.
This is really
So
exciting. Yeah, so it's going to be really exciting today. So we'll give you a rundown of what's happening. So there's a top 64. So there will be 8 cubes going on today. Whoever freeos those cubes will be in the top 8. So you need to win CubeCon, you need to basically go 6-0 today.
That's pretty easy, right?
I mean, it must be easy for people like Reed Duke and Caleb Durward who are in this top 64, right?
Yeah. Well, so Cube, I mean, anything can happen. That's the exciting part.
Right, this is it.
Yeah.
It's going to be a really exciting day. The top 8 is also going to be really exciting because we'll have the Magic Online Vintage Cube as the top 8, which is the current iteration of that Vintage Cube, which a lot of people have said across the weekend and since that was up on Magic Online that this is one of the best iterations of Vintage Cube ever.
Wow.
So seeing that in paper is going to be really fun. Hopefully we'll see some excellent players in that top 8 and it's just going to be a great time. We're here to have fun. It's going to be cute.
Yeah. Can I ask you a couple questions about your cube?
Go for it. I can talk about my cube all day like people can talk about their cube. I'm an open book.
Okay. So I've personally not made a cube yet.
Okay.
Would you have any like advice for a first timer?
That's a great question. So when it comes to building a cube, I think you need to spend time on what kind of experience do you want? Is there a particular thing that you like doing in Magic? Do you like the color pairings of Teema, for example? Would you want to do a Teema cube? Do you really like Ravnica as a backdrop? So would you want to do a Ravnica cube? As for me, I really like low rarity cards. I'm a big fan of Pauper. I play a lot of those formats. So I really wanted to push the limitation on rarity and having just a commons and uncommons format, which is what this Peasant Cube is. Building a cube is really scary. There's a lot of different ways you can go about it. If you're looking to build a cube but you don't know where to start, sometimes it's just best to take someone else's cube and just use that as a base and then evolve from it, which is how I started with my cube. I used Eric Klug's Peasant Cube, which is a great Peasant Cube, as just like a base because just stuffing random cards together doesn't always work, right? So I just used that as a base, and then over the years, I've just kind of tinkered it. People have played with it and just added my touch to it.
Gotcha. So, I mean, you do make adjustments frequently?
Well, yeah. Given the amount of cards that come out now, like there's a release every month, it seems. And when you have sets like Commander Masters, Double Masters, that downshift a lot of these rares and mythic rares, I have to look at them going, cool, these are going to be in my cube. A really good example recently is Gonti, Lord of Luxury, was a rare. It's now an uncommon in Commander Masters, which I've added to my cube. Yeah, which is pretty fun. But just the amount of releases makes it really hard to keep up at times, because if you blink and don't do anything, there's like 6 releases and you're like, holy moly, I need to catch up before there's another release. This is really scary. But no, it's really fun. I'm a big fan of these like lower rarity formats, and a lot of people are just like, oh, it's a bit mopey because there's no really like no mythic rares, there's no power, there's no rares, there's no busted silly things you can do. But I'm just like, Force of Will's in there, Demonic Tutor, Sylvan Library. These were all uncommons at one point because there was no such thing as rares. And hell, you got like Strip Mine. That's also an uncommon. So you have these independently busted cards that I don't think people quite realize were like uncommons at one point.
Right. Yeah.
And my favorite thing when it comes to these lower rarity formats is if someone plays a card, they go, how the F is this a common or an uncommon? Because it just does something really good. And that's a great experience and it's a great feeling to see.
Definitely. So I was fortunate enough to draft your cube yesterday.
Oh, what did you draft?
So I have a thing for white
Okay.
counters and go wide. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, then. It looks like we're going to go to the draft. We will be watching Reed Duke trying to break my cube once again. Some good cards in this pack. Let's have a look. So for context, so Reed Duke has drafted my cube. He drafted it on the first day and went 3-0. But he accidentally registered for it again, and he went 3-0 again. as you do, because you Reed Duke. So yeah, there's some really good cards in here. I kind of like the cast out. Goblin Bushwhacker is really good as well because red's one of the strongest colors in this cube.
I see.
In particular, mono red and also red black. So it'll be interesting to see what Reed takes here.
I mean, there's no bad choice.
No, Necrotol's also good as a removal spell. Carrion Feeder is also a nice one. It plays into that sacrifice role. I know Reed drafted mono red and mono green over the weekend and went undefeated.
Run it back, right?
Mono red is very good in this cube.
Yeah.
There's a lot of independently just good cards and a lot of good burn. So it just depends what Reed wants to do here. He's got a lot of good choices. If it was me, because it's different this time, right? You're not drafting for quote unquote fun. You're drafting to win this pod.
What did he take?
I don't know.
He didn't take the Goblin Bushwhacker that was still in there.
Porcelain Legion, there's a nice one. Battle Cry Goblin's really good because you can just have this really cheap curve and just kill people. But yeah, there's some good options in here. Rift Bolt is also fine, but you can probably get that on the wheel. And the Sling Gang you turn it is also great if Reed wants to go into the sacrifice theme, as we saw with the Bushwhack, as we saw with the Carrion Feeder in the previous pack.
It's so awesome to watch a draft like this because you see all these old cards and it's so nostalgic.
Yeah, one of my favorite things about this cube as well, there's a lot of mythic uncommons from the respected limited sets, and some people have came up to me over the weekend going, I played against this card, I remember losing to this in like Arrow Devastation Limited, thanks for the PTSD. I'm like, you're welcome, this is a great time. Another thing to note in this pack, you do have Rectos Cranarium and Opulent Palace. Peasant cubes tend to have great mana. You don't have things like Shocklands or Pathways, or any decent untapped mana sources. So these lands might be a high priority as we go through the draft.
Was that Fire and Ice?
Yes, that was Fire and Ice. Also just a great card.
Cube is so hard because all the cards are good.
Yes.
It's like so overwhelming.
Yeah. So there's some good picks in here. Timeless Witness is a really nice one. Any kind of regrowth effect in these style of cubes are really good. For context at home, my Peasant Cube is a very permanent creature focus cube. So any way where you can just like 2-for-1 your opponents is great. Looks like we took the Frontier Bivouac there, which is a really just good mana option. It's a really good mana option for that Fire Nice. And here's the best card in the pack in Fragrant Inspector, which Bree's probably not going to take it here because I don't think he's in white.
He could be. It's still early.
Improbable Alliance is a really fun build around because Reed does have that Fire and Ice. It just means you can just draw extra cards and make a board of fairies, which is really good for the Is It Spellsinger style decks. Also, Mind Control is a really good one. As I mentioned before, this cube is very permanent focus, so being able to steal your opponent's best creature to turn the tide of combat is really important here as well. But it looked like he took the Convulsive Research. So it looks like Reed's in blue here, hoping to wield this Angler Drake, which is a really nice top end for this style of deck.
Or the Alliance, right?
Yeah. He's got a lot of good options. Ooh, we have a Grizzly Fate. Reed is not in the colors of green, but Grizzly Fate is the kind of card that can just win a game. One thing about this cube, there is a lot of older uncommons that people just don't realize that are just really good. So stuff like Grizzly Fate, Centaur Glade's another good one, which is a 4-mana enchantment that you pay for to make a 3/3 Centaur. It doesn't feel exciting, but it's the kind of card that you don't respect, but when you play against it, you're going to lose. And then you pick it quite highly. Right, so let's have a look here. The Thriving Land's a nice one here because it's just a nice mana source. The Magic Missile's also quite nice because it goes with this.
An
Goes with,
ornithopter.
and the third path Iconoclast is great because you can
Ah.
just make tokens anytime you cast a instant sorcery or a non-creature spell. It's just a really nice way for these spell slinger decks just to go wide, and hopefully trying to wheel that improbable lines if Reed does decide to stay in. Is it? But it looks like Reed is taking the Ornithopter Paradise, which is just a nice mana option.
Right.
It's an O2 fly that can carry some equipment. You have things like Bone Splitter and Locks of the Warhammer in this cube. So eventually, once the Ornithopter's done its mana stuff, it can just wear equipment pretty well.
And it just keeps him open at this point.
Right, this is it. And this Mana Leak's a really nice pickup. You got Light Up the Stage, you got Playing with Fire, all these really good spells. But Yoga Tree Speaker is the best card in this pack. It's just whether Reed wants to tap into green. Apparently, Green Soul Ring is just really good. Who knew? Reed did draft a mono green deck for his first draft, and he said to me, "It's just like, yeah, it's like mono green, like Mana Dorks with a spectral possession," and I somehow just managed to win. I was like, okay, you're clearly seeing something that not many other people do. So Reed respects the Green Soul Ring here.
So he really doesn't have a dedicated lane yet.
No, I think it's looking to be in Teamer because we saw Fire and Ice, we saw the Tree Speaker, we saw the Compulsive Research. So it looks like Reed is probably going to be in blue. It's just deciding what the second and maybe the third color is.
And there's enough fixing to support 3 colors fairly easily?
You can do 2 colors and a splash in most cases. It's really hard to be like a dedicated 3-color deck. Just because you have some you have like the tri-lands and the bounce lands, and a lot of these just come in tapped, right? So there's some really good cards in this pack. Yavimaya Elves is like the fantastic one. It just allows Reed to do some ramp. It allows to draw in some cards. It's just a really good card if you want to be in green, which is like Reed's gonna fall into with this Yoga Tree Speaker.
Is that the one that's nicknamed Steve?
No, that's Sakura Tribe Elder,
Okay.
which is also in this cube. He's like old man Steve.
He has like the best poker face.
Yes. Like Din Rover Horror is probably one of the best cards in this pack, but I don't think Reed's in those colors, so he's probably just going to take this Vital Splicer, which just makes a 3/3 golem. Bane of Balaged's also a fine one if Reed wants to go into ramp. But Dim Rover Horror is going to be a pretty nasty one, and I wouldn't be surprised if Reed just like hate drafted it because it can be really powerful. Especially if you're able to flicker it, just forcing people to discard every
Ooh.
turn, which is just disgusting.
Yeah, that's brutal.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, so there's a hate.
Yeah. It could be a hate draft, it could splash for it. But yeah, it's just a really good card in this case. See, the Opulent Palace came back, which is in Sultai colors. Looks like he's prioritizing that. There we go. So it looks like Reed's probably going to, like, Reed can still play the ice of Fire and Ice.
Mm-hmm.
So it looks like we're probably entering into like a Sultai build. So let's. Oh. I was hoping he would pick up the pack. This Mind Control wheel, which is really good.
Wow.
That is an amazing pick
That's
for
a
Reed.
surprising wheel.
Yeah, no, people don't really rate Mind Control effects really high. Like this Grizzly Fake came around as well, which is amazing. I think this Green Speaker is probably the pick. But Grizzly Fate is just a really nice top end just to clog up the board with 2/2 bears. And Jungle Barriers in the cube because there is like a dedicated wall strategy.
Oh.
Yeah. So Reed could go into walls at some point. Because there are cards like Assault Formation in this cube, which because it was downgraded to an uncommon. So if Reed happens to open the Assault Formation, he may be able to attack with some walls.
So that was Bulwark? What was the...
It's a walking bulwark.
Okay.
It's a wall card. It's a very walls matter card.
Ah.
And also picked up a Mind Stone, which is pretty good as well. So it looks like we have some blue cards. We have some green cards. I see a Utopia Sprawl. I see a Yoga Tree Speaker. I see the Yavimaya Elder. I see Mind Stone. I see the Ornithopter Paradise. So it looks like Reed has a lot of good fixing, a lot of good ramp, and he also he's picked up 2 dual lands, which happen to be in green and blue, which are looking to be his primary colors here.
And would you say it's a solid start?
I'd say this is a solid start. Picking up lands early is always really good because people will fight for those eventually because people just want to cast their spells. Please, for the love of God, WotC, print some uncommon untapped lands one time.
Can you just take a Sharpie and
yeah, just change the rarity. Ghoul Turf is a nice one here if Reed wants a nice bounce land. People keep boxing my cube, goddammit.
Rishkar is great too, right?
Rishkar is really cool. It's a really fun one. Just if you want to do some counter synergy, puts any creatures with a counter as a mana dork, which can be relevant. Whirler Rogue's also a really good card, but I don't think Reed's quite in the colours to utilize it best. There's a lot of good picks here. Preordain and Lightning Bolt are probably the best 2 cards in this pack, but it's just whether Reed wants to splash red or go into red here. Ghoul Turf would also be a nice pickup, but Reed does have those tri-lands already.
So this is like a turning point, this pack.
Yeah. Reed does have this really good strong base. It's just figuring out what other colours to have with it. Exclude's also fine if Reed wants a little bit of interaction and counter magic. He's taking a long, hard think on this. Looks like we're going to take the Lightning Bolt because I don't think Reed has drafted any removal at this point. So it's just good to have some interaction there.
Because you said it's really creature heavy.
Yeah, there's a lot of creatures, a lot of opponents. There's a Bloodbraid Elf in this pack, which I know how much Reed loves to cast a Bloodbraid Elf. Prophetic Titan's a really sweet card as well. It's the creature version of Prophetic Bolt.
I love is it Elvish Visionary?
It's Llanowar Visionary.
Yes.
It is an Elvish Visionary, but it's 3 mana instead of 2. But it ETBs draws a card, which is really good. No, Reed there's spoiled for options here. There's counter spells looking really nice. Prophetic Titan's also really good, but I think Reed values the cheaper interaction here. There's a lot of red cards going around as well. Be interesting to see if someone drafts a mono red deck here.
Ooh, Watcher is really fun.
Watcher's a really fun card here. Elves of Deep Shadow is also quite nice. Centaur Glade, as I mentioned earlier, is really nice. If Reed does decide to pick it, it's just a card that can just gum up the board because you're just able to play the long game. But of course, Reed values the mana dorks. I think he just values just having been able to cast his spells. Who doesn't love eating their vegetables?
Very responsible.
Yeah. I would hope this Centaur Glade wheels because that card is just really good. People don't respect it enough. Renegade Freight is a really nice one if you want just people dead very quickly. Terra Sunder's also quite good because there are some problematic enchantments and artifacts. Mentioning stuff like control magic and the Centaur Glade, having answers to those is really, really important. And with cards like Terra Sunder, you can just lightly splash the black to make sure you can kick for it. You don't need to be dedicated into black either.
Control magic is just a 2-for-1.
Right. This cube is all about 2-for-1. So just being able to yoink someone's best thing and then just beat them with it is just a really good thing to do in this cube.
So rude.
Fact of Fiction's a really nice one here. You got a Llanowar Elves, which Reed is probably just going to snap off here. I get the impression there's no green player at the table because Reed is just getting all these green creatures, or these really important mana dorks. It looks like Reed's just running back the archetype that he drafted yesterday on Friday, which he freeoed with, which is just like mana dorks and just this big payoff. So we have a Vastwood Surge here. We have a Capitec, which is a really good way to deal with artifacts and enchantments.
Which there are a lot of.
Yeah, there's a lot of Saruman's Trickery is also nice. It's basically a cancel with a mass. So you get to make a token out of the trade, which is relevant when there's so many permanents in the cube. But Kappa Tech Wrecker is a really nice one if you just want to deal some damage and just get a little bit aggressive with these mana dogs.
I want to know his thought process for this. Like, I mean, you can kind of see it because he lines up the cards in the front. But yeah, like, what is the deciding factor?
It's clear that Reed has pivoted into green heavily. Sphinx's tutelage is a really fun one if he really wants to take advantage of anyone playing monocolors in this deck, in this cube. Tezzeret Gambit's just a really fun draw spell. Spirit Monger's a really fun one. It's a really problematic hate piece. It's just a stubborn threat that can just stick around for quite a while. Just depends if Reed feels like milling out his opponents this weekend. And he does.
Maybe.
It's just really good against like the monocolored decks.
Ooh. Mystic.
Ridge Scale Tusker's a really nice top end for this mono green deck.
It helps turn your mana dorks into more threatening creatures.
Yeah, and it's just got a nice counter synergy as well. Reed can take this Millstone if he fancies milling people out, but I would be taking the Ridge Scale Tusker here. You've got so many ways to generate mana in this deck, and I just want some top end and put some counters on other creatures. And Reed agrees. A Gruul Turf Field as well, which is relevant. There's a lot of blue cards in the pack. I kind of like taking the Exclude or the Preordain here.
That is one of the bounce lands, right?
Yes, that is a Gruul Turf, yeah.
Which is a little dangerous because Strip Mine exists.
Yep, so Strip Mine, Wastelander in here, and also Flicker Wisp is in here. So if you Flicker Wisp a bounce land, it can be pretty gnarly. But Reed has taken like 2 Tri-lands as well, so he's pretty good for mana. So Reed just takes a Psionic Blast because it's the only blue card left in the pack. Might probably be a Cyborg card eventually. Oh, this Sentinel Glade's in the pack. Why is this Sentinel Glade in the pack? Someone should just please take it. So yeah, Sentinel Glade and Loot to Ill Core are good here. Loot to Ill Core just allows you to just rummage and find something that you like need.
Right.
Sentinel Glade is just something to do all that excess mana, given that you have all these mana dorks. The fact it also has Shadow on Loot to Ill Core is relevant. It can wear equipment really well, and it just usually just gets in for chip damage. But also Murderous Cut is a really good card. This sort of cheap, effective removal is also quite good. So Reed takes a Loot Ill Core here and value in just that cheap interaction. So we have an Experiment one. We have a Sifter one, which is another great card if you are looking to do something with those mana dorks. And it's really good against the mono red decks because you are just able just to gain a load of life.
So great top end.
Yeah. Whether Reed wants to take this Artisan or Kozilek or this Vastwood Surge. I'll probably take the Vastwood Surge here. It's just slightly better with Reed's mana. And Reed is not looking to play like a reanimation strategy, so Artisan or Kozilek's a little worse. However, you do have these mana dogs, so there is a chance you can just ramp into it. All right, so let's see what Reed has got so far. So there's a lot of mana dogs. We have Elves of Deep Shadow, we have Jorg Tree Speaker, we have Llanowar Elves, we have a bunch of Tri-lands, we have some sweet blue cards, we have this really nice green top end with like Sifter Worm, and we have some card filtering with Factor Fiction. Also, interestingly, Reed has managed to take a couple of like mind control effects, which are going to come up in these games. They're going to be really good.
So do you think he's going to be straight teamer here?
I think he's going to be Simic Splash Red. I think the red's going to be really light. I can like this Firing Knight will probably go in. This Lightning Bolt will probably go in. But yeah, Reed has just like a really strong top end. He has these threats and he has these mind control effects that can just turn the tide of the game. And he's got Utopia Sprawl, which is great. He's got Ornithopter Paradise. He's got Yavimaya Elder that can find lands. Yeah, this is coming together quite nicely. I think in the next pack, Reed would like to see something like a Sylvan Library. It's just a really good way to filter out and just find what you need. Probably something for the lower end as well. So maybe some like 3 or 4 mana creatures, just to gum up the board a little bit. Okay. So Mystic Monastery is the Jeskai land. Casmina is a fine one if you're just looking to make a load of wizards, but it's not quite the right deck for that. So Wave Sifter is a nice one. Loxodon Warhammer is a nice one. And then there's a Elvish Mystic with Regis just going to take. So he's just going to take all the mana dorks. Wave Sifter is a really nice one. Granted, Reed doesn't really have a way to blink it, but it's just a nice value card that just makes a load of clue tokens.
That probably wheels though, right?
Yeah. This Loxodon Warhammer is also going to be a problem if someone drafts that. This looks like Reed. I think Reed has most of the mana dorks already, just from this draft. Everflowing Chalice is a nice one if Reed just wants more mana. Maze of If might be a nice utility land if you just want to deal with a threat.
Ooh.
Thrix is really good. That's a recent addition to the cube. That was a downshifting Commander Masters. So Thrix the Sunstorm is really good at making your 5 mana value spells or more uncounterable. And Reed does have like Sifter Worm and Ridge Scale Tusker, and these just become uncounterable.
Well, it's Flash.
Yeah,
right?
and it's
So
got Flash as well.
It's just like a I got you card.
And it's a 4/5 flyer on its own, so it can just close out games.
Yeah.
But people don't realize that you can just play like a Sifter Worm and it's uncounterable, which is brutal against like the control decks. If it sticks around, it could just take over a game.
And he's looking for some more top end.
Yeah. And there are a couple of mind control effects that are 5 mana value or more, and having them uncountable, it can be huge. So like Reed is audibling on Everflowing Chalice, which is just a great way to ramp up on mana, and this Fricks. Golgari Rock Farm's also fine. We don't really have any black to splash though. Bloodbraid Elf is also fine because we do have this Gruul Turf. And we all know how much Reed likes playing with Bloodbraid Elf. Psyche's in the tank here. There's a lot of good cards in this pack. I think I would take the Thrix and be greedy, and I'm probably going to get punished for it, and that's why I'm in the booth and not that's why I'm not drafting in this top 64 right now.
Is it the double blue?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's Everflowing Chalice is better for what this deck wants to do, but Fricks is just such a beating if you're able to keep it around. And just the idea of just having like an uncountable Sifter Worm and Ridge Scale Tusker is just too good to pass up, and Reed's decided to go for it. So that's one of the thriving lands. Simic Growth Chamber is a really nice one here because it's in Reed's colours. We're definitely a Simic deck here. So this Simic Growth Chamber should be the easy pick.
Yeah.
But there are some other cards in here, like Reclamation Sage is really nice. Just to have that 3 mana value, just to fill out the curve and just deal with any pesky artifacts or enchantments that may come the way. And Regis takes the Force of Will, which is like one of the strongest, like, as I was saying earlier. Force of Will is like a great card. I know a lot of people say, oh, it's Force of Will. It's the most, like, best counter spells ever. But you still have to trade resources for it. You have to pay a life. You have to exile a card. It's just very good in this cube. Beanstalk Giant's a really nice one because it's a threat, but it can also ramp. Underground Battlement's also good because it can soak up aggression and generate some mana. And Reed does have a couple of walls as well. So it looks like Reed just wants to play this really aggressively ramp deck, but have some walls just to stem some aggression here.
He's a solid late game.
It is a solid late game. This regrowth's really nice if you just want to bring a few things back. Assault Formation is really good with all the walls that Reed has. But this acidic slime's also really sweet. Just having an answer that comes in entering the battlefield, and the death touch can be relevant in some places, given how combat focused the cube is. There's also land destruction as well, which people don't often realize with acidic slime. Blowing up like a bounce land is also a fine play in this cube.
Especially if you do it super early because you rammed into that.
Right, this is it. He's got all these mana dorks. Playing like a turn 3 acidic slime, blowing up your tri-land or your bounce land. It's a solid strat in this cube, just given how, you know, people prioritize these mana sources to play these spells. Regrowth is also great here. It just allows Reed to replay any of the spells that he wants to do, like Force of Will, which just seems gross. Jilt's a really nice one here. We do have access to red, so he can splash it for the kicker. Jilt's just a really nice way to create some tempo, so it bounces a creature and you can deal 2 damage. It's probably one of my favorite blue cards in this cube. That's how I like to play blue in Magic, just have that fun tempo-y bounce and blow something up, instead of just being like this hard counter control player.
That's very kind of you.
Yeah, I know, right? I'm doing a service. And given there's a lot of creatures in the cube that just have low toughness, just being able to chip something away is really nice. But Reed decided to go for the burst lightning here. So we have a Reckless Impulse, we have a Fire Blast. Feast of Succession's a really excellent card in this cube because Monarch is really powerful. And it couples up with a board wipe, but we do have Goreclaw and Kadama's Reach, which are probably going to be higher priorities for Reed, because Kadama Reach ramps, which is what Reed's looking to do. Wingmate Chaplain's an exciting one because it is the Walls Matter card. It allows you to grow your board and make some bird tokens, so Reed could take this as well, but Feast of Succession is a beating, and it might be something Reed is willing to hate draft just because he has all these mana dorks and all these low toughness creatures. And Feast of Succession, like wiping the board and then you becoming the Monarch, so you get to draw a card off it, is really powerful in 1v1.
Yeah.
But Goreclaw is also really good. It discounts some high power threats. It's just a beating if left unresolved. But Reed's decided to go to Kadama Reach here because he's probably going to be playing a lot of basics, so picking that up is smart.
Ooh.
And then the Wave Sifter come back around, as you said, Jamie. So we'll probably just snap this off. Heaven's Chalice went round as well. That's pretty sweet. And this Bloodbraid Elf is also in there, which you can splash for because we do have this Frontier Bivouac and this the Gruul Bounce Land. Reed's going to tap into his inner Jund a little bit with this Bloodbraid Elf, maybe. Pristine Talisman's also a nice one. It's not exciting, but just being able to gain a little mana and incidentally gain 1 or 2 life is just really nice against these aggressive decks.
So this is a really tough choice.
It is a tough choice. We are getting close. We are getting close to the end. So Reed is just thinking about what he wants to fill out his deck with, and he's decided to go for the Pristine Talisman. Trigon Predator is a nice one. It's just a nice flying threat that can just deal with any artifacts or enchantments. Reed might just aggressively take the Cogwort Librarian and try and nab 2 cards in a later pack. There's a lot of bounce lands still going around, which is kind of surprising. It says to me there aren't people in Dimir or Orzhov. Path of the World Tree is just it's a kind of a ramp spell, but it just has a nice payoff if you decide to go greedy with 5 colors. So we have a Noise Marine in here, which is one of the Universes Beyond cards. Growth Spiral is a really nice one, which plays really well in what Reed's trying to do here. Excuse me. Which is just play loads of lands, ramp into these big threats. Incinerate is a fine sideboard option. And we're just getting through the dreg. So this is Soul Formations in the pack still, so he's probably just going to take it. You can see the smile on his face. I would love to see Assault Formation win a game in this draft, but we'll see. Reed does have some defender cards. He has a lot of the walls that generate mana. Yeah. So who knows? He may side this in and just beat people down with 4/4 walls. All right. Okay. Okay, then. So that was Reed's draft for the Peasant Cube. What did you think about that?
I mean, it's always really cool to watch like a professional Magic player
Right.
draft.
It's nervous for me because it's my cube, and I'm just like, cool. This Pro Tour champion and like world champion top 8 player is just drafting my cube, and hopefully not gonna break it. Not gonna do anything too ridiculous. But yeah, what did you think about it? What do you think? Like, there's a lot of good green creatures in there.
Yeah, I mean, I think green was open early. He
Yes.
identified that, and then just took advantage of that
Yeah.
and built a pretty solid deck. He doesn't have that much interaction.
No, that's a bit worrying. I'm guessing the interaction Reed wants is I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna go over you with these big threats, and I'm gonna have stuff like force of will to back that up, and just want people dead as quickly as possible. And it's something he's drafted before, as I mentioned earlier during that draft. Reed has he drafted like this mono green deck that was full of like mana dorks, so it was very similar to what we're seeing now, but it had like spectral possession just as a way to ramp and make those 1/1s. So clearly Reed knows something if he's running it back this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, I can't help but root for Reed.
Oh no, same. I would love Reed. I would love, like, I have 2 players down to win this weekend. I would love Reed to win or Dom Harvey to win. And Dom Harvey is because he's English and we need some English representation in CUBECON. But yeah, this top 64 is going to be really stacked. We've got, Reed Duke, we've got Dom Harvey, we've got Sam Black, Caleb Durboard is in the top 64 as well. So there's just all these just like these limited ringers that have just come out to play QCon and hopefully win the trophy this weekend.
Yeah, and Caleb was our winner last year.
Correct. So not only is Caleb the first winner of QCon, he might be the first back-to-back winner of QCon as well, which would be insane. But I know full well Reed Duke, like I spoke to him before the event, and he was like, I am here to win QCon. Like, he's taking this seriously. He even won some cheese on Thursday and a cheese board. Like, guy could be doing literally anything else, and he's like, nope, I'm here to cube, I'm here to have fun, and I'm here to win. So we'll see what happens. All right. So, okay then. So we're going to go to deck building. I believe we have Ivan Meyer. We're going to look at his deck build, who will be playing Reed Duke in the first round. So it looks like Ivan has a nice mixture of, looks like we're going to go Jund here. I see a Flame Tongue Yearling. I see a Beetleback Chief. I believe I see a Flame Tongue Kavu as well, which is a nice one. We see Chain Lightning. We see Firebolt. Picture quality is a little rough, so it's very hard to see. Just hoping we can get some focus in there. But yeah, it looks like Ivan is kind of red-black, maybe. Maybe splashing a little bit of green for some filler, like Vital Splicer. Excuse me. So yeah, it looks like we've got like a decent red-black deck. Ivan has ways to come up the board with this Beetleback Chief, Flame Tongue Carver, and Flame Tongue Yearling are just really nice removal spells that progress the board state. Chain Lightning is just another good one to chip off threats, as is Firebolt. And the Skim Render as well. So it looks like Ivan has a lot of removal, so he's able to get rid of these mana dogs and hopefully clear the path to victory. I also believe I see a Jury, which is a really nice sacrifice option if Ivan wants to do something with these tokens created by Beetleback Chief. So it looks like we're gonna have like a Simic ramp deck versus like a red-black mid-range, maybe with a little bit of sacrifice. Be interesting to see how these play. I believe I see a Zulabot Cutthroat as well, which is going to be a really nice one, just to deal, just to mitigate some life loss if Reed manages to get aggressive. Also see a Blightning and an Invasion of Amonkhet. Invasion of Amonkhet is a really fun one if you're able to defeat the battle, where it flips over into a creature and you can copy a creature from a graveyard.
Oh wow!
Yeah, it was the big limited bomb in March of the Machine. It was one of like the best uncommons you could play. And I was like, put it in my cube. It becomes a 4/4, and you can copy any creature in the graveyard. So just having that 4/4 with some extra text, depending on what the opponent has in the graveyard, is really nice. I also see an Animate Dead. I see a Hero's Downfall. I see an Unearth. I see a Murderous Redcap. I see a Blood Tithe Harvester. See, see a Mayhem Devil. So it doesn't look like Ivan has drafted the red-black sacrifice deck. There is a Jury, there is a Judas the Scourge Diva, and to be honest, red-black sack is probably one of the best decks in this cube. It's that big enough that you can have 2 people draft sack at the deck and they'll do very well. So we can see Ivan just displaying his deck right now. So I see a Carrion Feeder, which is a really nice sacrifice payoff. I see Blood Type Harvester, which is a nice option. We've got a Murderous Redcap, which is just fantastic to sacrifice with Carrion Feeder. We've got an Archfiend of Sorrow, which is a really nice top end for these like black decks. Just allows you to go over a little bit. I see an Inquisition of Kozilek, which is nice interaction. You also have Blightning. Like Unearth is really good just to bring back good to bring back like Judith and Mayhem Devil. But yeah, this deck looks sweet. You got a nice blend of removal, you got a nice blend of threats, you've got a nice ways to recur stuff. This Animate Dead's gonna do a lot of lifting because you can target cards in the opponent's graveyard, so you can bring something back from their graveyard, which is something people don't quite always read with Animate Dead, but you can absolutely do that.
Yeah.
And then we've got an Active Aggression as well, which is really nice for these sacrifice decks because you can just yoink the opponent's best creature, sack it off, trigger Mayhem Devil, trigger Judith, and do all this sacrifice shenanigans. So yeah, Ivan has a really strong deck here.
So for the Unearth and Entomb, what targets does he have for those cards?
So for Unearth, you're just looking to bring back creatures like your sacrifice payoff. So it'd be really good to bring back Mayhem Devil, which is a really pivotal card in this deck.
Or Judith?
And Judith or Jury. Like your sacrifice payoffs are really good here. Also, you could just bring back a Murderous Redcap after you've done all your position shenanigans just to do it all again. This is the kind of card that you just want because it just creates that 2-for-1, right? Like someone's removed Judith and you're like, actually, I'm just going to unearth it and bring it back. And if there is no targets, you can just cycle it away for a new card.
Okay, I have a serious question to ask you.
Yeah, go for it.
Do you think Murderous Redcap is cute?
Yes.
Yay!
He's just a good little boy.
Yeah.
That just wants to kill people with persist and do some silly combos. It's unfortunate that Ivan didn't get the Grumgully, which replaces the persist with +1 punch counter, so you can keep looping it. There's a couple of loops in the cube.
Wow.
Not like you can force it, but Grumgully the Generous is a really fun one to have it. There's also a Kitchen Finks in the cube, so you can gain a bunch of life. But yeah, either way, Ivan has drafted a really powerful deck, and Reed might have some problems here. Just having this low sacrifice curve along with stuff like Mayhem Devil, which is going to chip away at those 1/1 mana dorks, right? It's going to pick them off quite easily. And then once the dust is settled, Ivan can cast his Archfiend of Sorrows and just go ham in the air.
So you think this is going to be a tough matchup for Reed?
I think it's going to be tough for Reed. But this is also Reed Duke, who could win with a ham sandwich blindfolded. So we'll have to see. But no, Ivan's no like anomaly when it comes to competitive Magic. He's also top 8 a couple of Pro Tours as well back in the day. So he clearly knows what he's doing as well. So it'll be interesting to see 2 competitive giants playing against each other in this cube in round 1. Looks like Ivan's audibling on the last few picks. Slaying Fire is a good removal card, but it does reward you for paying triple red to get the most out of it, because I forgot the name of the ability. It's from the original Eldraine.
Adamant.
That's the one, Adamant, thank you. Yeah, so it has Adamant, so it kind of encourages you to pay like all the same color mana to get the cost, to get the effect, sorry. And Ivan already has a lot of good removal. Like he has this Firebolt, he has this Chainline, he has a Go for the Throat, he has a Hero's Downfall, and then he has stuff like Mayhem Devil that can just pick off threats. Oh, and this Murderous Redcap. That's just going to do some absolute nonsense. There's also a Bastion of Remembrance, which is a really good enchantment for these sacrifice decks because it just enables to chip away at the opponent's life total. Reed is going to need to lean on this Sifter Worm to gain a lot of life, I think.
Yeah, so Ivan has a great curve, a lot of answers,
Yep.
a lot of threats.
With the sacrifice deck, you just want a really low curve of creatures that can do things at any point. You want to be as reactive as possible. Okay, so I'm really stoked that someone's drafted one of the better archetypes in the cube. Reed has also drafted great. Like the mono green go over is also really good. So it'll be really interesting to see how this plays out because Reed does have a little bit of interaction. He does have that force of will and a couple other blue spells that might be able to get him there. But depending on how Ivan plays it out, this could be really rough for Reed. Just keeping those mana dorks around is going to be really hard when you have all this removal and a Mayhem Devil.
Right. Definitely. What other decks are you like wanting to see today?
I really want to see the Azorius Blink deck because that is one of my favorite archetypes just to draft in Magic, like in general. There are some like signpost cards for Blink, so you have stuff like Soul Herder, Cloud Blazer. You also have Reflector Mage, which was a Bane of Standard at one point, and then you have stuff like Ephemerate. You have Seagate Oracle. All these ways just to manipulate those enter the battlefield abilities, sculpt your hand, and just like. In response of you removing stuff, I'm going to Ghostly Flicker this thing. I'm going to make some more advantage. I'm going to grow my Soul Herder and I'm going to kill you. And that's just really fun for me.
That sounds like fun.
It's a lot of fun. It's really, people get frustrated with it because it's just really hard to remove threats when you can just be so reactive. But that I'm really hoping we see like a Blink deck. That would be sweet. It's also one of the more powerful archetypes in the cube as well. All right, so we're going to go to a quick break while the players finish just deck building and get settled in for round one. So yeah, stick around, make sure you hit that follow button, and we'll be back soon.
Welcome back. We are getting ready to head into the first round.
Yes, so we have Reduke. Everyone knows who Reduke is. If you don't, that's your loss because Reduke's great. One of the best players around at the minute. So Reduke's going to be playing against Ivan Meyer, who I have been told by Justin Parnell that he was the top 8 competitor for CUBECON last year. So he's looking to do back-to-back top 8s at CUBECON, and he's looking to win it. He seems pretty serious, and he's up against Reduke.
It could be anyone's game.
It could be anyone's game.
Yeah.
Ivan drafted a really sweet Ragdoll Sacrifice deck, which is one of the more powerful archetypes in this cube. Reed is going to be playing a Simic Rampy style deck. He drafted a lot of Mana Dorks, so there's a lot of Llanowar Elves, Elvish Mystics, Yorker Tree Speakers. But he also has stuff like Sifter Worm, Ridgetail's Tusker. And he has cards like Growth Spiral, and there's some interaction in there with Force of Will. So it'll be really interesting to see how this plays out.
Definitely. So can we talk about one of our sponsors?
Yeah, we can do this quickly before this game starts.
Oh.
So,
MTGO.
yep, great
Magic
place.
Online.
You should play Cube. I believe right now on Magic Online you can play Frank Laporte's Horror Cube because it's spooky season. So that cube includes all the Innistrad sets. And so Ivan's kicking off with a Carrion Feeder, which is a really good turn 1 play as someone who plays for your sacrifice deck. You just want to put down your threats as easy as possible. So Carrion Feeder is going to chip in for 1 here. Okay, Ivan has a Lampada Vigil, which is another sacrifice outlet. Just coming up the board with this 1/3 and just looking to establish all these sacrifice threats and just draw into more interaction.
What did Reed play?
He played a Mindstone.
Mindstone, okay.
Oh, here comes the Judas. So Ivan has this really cool curve. Like, yes, these cards care about sacrificing. They could also punch you in the face if there's a Judith on the other side of the board due to the +1/+0 that Judith brings.
Yeah, that's a strong start. He's already at 15 life.
It's a very strong start. Ragdoll Sacrifice can just curve out and kill people. You can be the aggressor in these builds, which might be a problem for Reed because Reed is this ramp deck. There may be a point these Mana Dogs are just going to be on chump block duty with these threats in play. And Judith is really punishing just because if you block and remove one of these creatures, she's going to deal 1 damage to you.
Right. And he has the sacrifice in the 2 costs. The Lampad has you can pay 1 colorless and sacrifice something.
Yes, you can do that. Let me just get up the text. So Lampada Death Vigil is a 1/3 for 2. You can pay 1 generic mana and you sacrifice a creature. Each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life.
Right, so that can close out a game.
Yeah, it's kind of a slower Blood Artist, but it's something that this deck needs. The 1/3 is also nice here.
That's the Murderous Red Cap.
Oh no, here we go.
Ooh. So sacking and comes back with Persist.
It does 3 damage due to Judith.
Oh, yeah. This is so fast.
This is really fast. I think Reed's gonna have a real hard time here because Reed's already at 9, and this is 10-4.
Right. I would say. Oh, what is that 2?
Yeah, I think Reed is just dead here. Yeah, that was a 10-4
That
kill.
was so fast.
Yeah, this cube can be really fast if you know what you're
Wow.
doing. Ivan had like an incredible curve there. And that's how it happens sometimes. Like it's just like I don't think Ivan could have asked for a much better hand there. Just going sack outlet to Judith, which is just a really good aggressive topper, and then you have this murderous red cap that can deal free with Judith in play,
That's
and it
so
just
cool.
obliterate you. That was incredible. But yeah, let's go back to Magic Online, which is one of our sponsors this weekend. Magic Online is one of the best places to play Cube. I imagine you play Cube Online a lot. I have played a lot of Cube Online. It's where you can play Vintage Cube a lot of the time. As I said earlier, Frank Lepore has this spooky cube because it is spoopy season because we're getting close to Halloween. So if you enjoy Innistrad, Block, Limited, it has all the Innistrad sets in there. I'd recommend checking it out. Another cool thing about Magic Online is that you can qualify for the Pro Tour on it.
There's so many qualifiers.
Right, there's so
Yeah.
many. I can't even keep up. And at one point, Magic Online also had these top 64 elimination drafts for Vintage Cube, which was a really nice competitive way
That's
to
really
get ready for
cool.
CubeCon.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you to our sponsors, Magic Online and Daybreak Games, who now run Magic Online for Wizards of the Coast. I think Reed's in a lot of trouble here.
I mean, he's gonna be on the play, so
Yep.
he might be able to get ahead.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I think a lot of these mana dorks are going to be on chump duty, and it's going to be really hard because Ivan has a lot of this cheap removal. He has the Firebolt, he has the Chain Lightning. I saw a Hero's Downfall in his pool, and he has like the Mayhem Devil, which is the signpost card that you want in these sacrifice decks. The fact it can deal 1 damage, it can chip away at these Llanowar, these Elvish Mystics, and everything else. So Reed's going to have a really hard time reaching to that top end, but also just surviving to make that top end, to
Right.
get that 4/5 mana, to play a Ridge Tusker, to play a Sifter Worm. So yeah, it's not looking good at the minute.
So Ivan also has a lot of like direct damage burn.
Right, this is
Yeah.
it. So as I mentioned during that very quick game 1, you can just be the aggressor. You can have this 1-2-3 curve, turn sideways, and then just chip away. Just do the last few points of damage with like a Firebolt or a Chain Lightning. That is also reasonable. You don't have to tie into this sacrifice shenanigans, even though we saw that with Murderous Redcap. That basically turned into a lightning bolt.
That was awesome.
That was disgusting but fun.
Yeah.
And that gives you the idea of Peasant Cube. Like, a lot of people see Peasant Cube as something a bit mopey, something a bit slow, just because there aren't like these rares and mythic rares that are usually quite powerful. There is no Moxen, there is no power. There are some strong cards, granted, but it's all about synergy. And if you have strong synergies, you can have a lot of fun in these environments.
Definitely.
And given the amount of how Wizards of the Coast like to downshift card these days with sets like Commander Masters, with that release, I managed to put a lot more cards in this cube because they were downshifted. You saw a Goreclaw in the draft earlier today. That was downshifted from a rare. And also Gonti, Lord of Luxury, one of my favorite black cards, is now an uncommon, which is also in the cube. And if you played that card, that one's pretty messed up.
Especially if you can like blink them.
Right, this is it. There's a
yeah.
blink strategy. I saw someone draft like a Demir control deck with Gonti and being able to ghostly flicker and just steal the opponent's best cards.
That's gross.
It's just gross but fun. So while it's easy just to like shrug off these pauper and peasant cubes, I recommend checking them out because they're good fun. It gives a different approach to Magic, a different way to play these games without thinking, yeah, I just want to do the most busted thing. I want to do the Black Lotus. I want to do all the Storm stuff. You can have a lot of fun with these lower powered formats. And they're also, the reason it's called Peasant is because it's cheap. There's an affordability to building cube. Like you could probably build a good Peasant cube for like $200, $300 if you just pick out the most basic versions. Not like my cube, which is pretty much filled out, which is the opposite of a Peasant cube because I plan to keep it for a while. But you could probably build a nice Peasant cube, or even a Pauper cube for less than $200, and you're going to get a load of mileage out of that. That's like cheaper than a standard deck.
So what inspired you to do a pauper? I mean, peasant, sorry.
Yeah, sorry. I'm someone that likes to play a lot of, so I play a lot of Pauper, and a lot of people know that I'm on the Pauper format panel. So I have a really good idea and a real appreciation of playing these like lower rarity formats, and I just wanted to replicate that in a cube. So it looks like Reed played an Overgrown Battlement, which is it's a mana producing creature, but it does require a wall.
The Lampard's back.
Yeah, the Lampard's back. But the important thing here, Reed played the Overgrown Battlement to stem the bleeding, as we saw in the first game with Judith and Murderous Redcap. And it looks like Reed's going for a wall plan here with this Caravan Carotid, which is just an 0-4 that ETBs and draws a card.
Just.
Yeah. I'd be interested. So Reed did draft the Assault formation. It'd be interesting to see if he brought it in for this game. And just turning these 0-3s and 0-4s into 3-3s and 3-4s and being able to get aggressive. And here comes the Mayhem Devil, which is one of the signpost sacrifice cards for this deck.
Reed does not want to see that.
It's a really good card. Who knew that a devil on a bicycle would be really good in that?
Is that a bicycle?
It's like a little bicycle thing, because it's Ravnica, so I believe it's just like a little circus demon thing. But it's really good in this cube. And with all the mana dorks that redrafted, they can just be chipped off by this Mayhem Devil once there's an engine going.
Did you have Oven and Cat in the cube?
No, I did consider putting Oven Cat combo in here, but the sacrifice deck doesn't need any more juice, to be honest. So we have a Flame Tongue Kavu here, which is probably going to take out one of these walls. Just figuring out which one to take out here. Something that we know about Ivan's deck, there is a lot of removal, so he can chip away and remove these wall cards without much issue. But we'll see what Reed does here.
Oh.
Ooh, so we're playing a Frix the Sudden Storm, which is a really nice payoff. It's a 4/5 with flash. It discounts your spells with mana value of 5 by 1, and any spell that you cast that's over 5 of mana value cannot be countered. Reed does have a couple of cards such as Rich Scale Tusker. He also has a Sifter Worm, and there's some control magic spells in here, which I believe some of them are over 5 mana. Not that you're going to see any counter magic from Ivan.
Is that a signet?
That is a Pristine Talisman,
Talisman.
which will negate the 1 damage from the Mayhem Devil.
Yeah. That's not nothing.
Reed has acknowledged that, yes, I got obliterated in game 1 and I need to figure out how to survive, because the longer this game goes, the better chance I have of winning.
Oh, Thrix is a fast clock.
Thrix is a fast clock. A 4/5 with flyer is not to be messed with. You need hope Ivan can just find that hero's downfall. Maybe even 2 for 1 with a couple of removal spells to potentially deal with this. Looks like Ivan's going to get aggressive here. Just trying to chip in a few points of damage. And here comes Flame Tongue Yearling, which is the baby Flame Tongue Kavu from Modern Horizons.
So cute.
So it does have multi-kicker, which Ivan hasn't kicked for. So when it enters the battlefield, with a +1/+1 counter for each time it was kicked, it is not kicked in this case. But when it does enter the battlefield, it deals damage equal to its power to target creature. So it does deal 2 damage. So it can destroy that Caravan Carotid that was on blocking duty. And here comes the counter spell. So no baby Flame Tongue Kavu for you.
So sad.
Okay. So here comes the Hero's Downfall that I mentioned earlier. That will just take out that Thrix, no problem. It seemed that Ivan baited out the counter spell just to deal with that Thrix, because it is a beating if it sticks around. So regains 1 life from this Pristine Talisman, which is relevant. So here comes the Sifter Worm. So you get to scry 3, and you get to put a card back on top of your library, and then you reveal that card, and you gain that much life based on its mana value.
And it's a 7/7 trample.
It's a 7/7 trampler.
So no chump blocking.
No chump blocking. So I believe you gain 4 because it's a jungle barrier. So that is relevant. Sifter Worm is just a really nice payoff for these green decks. Just a nice bit top end. Really fun if you can flicker it as well. Oh, okay. So Ivan is just taking control of it.
That's so brutal.
Yeah. which is what you were saying earlier, taking like the active aggression and the mad treachery is just really good because you can just take the opponent's best creature and just throw it in someone's face and then sack it.
Yeah, this is looking pretty rough for Reed.
Ivan has drafted an incredibly good deck here. I wouldn't be surprised if he free O's with this deck because the sacrifice is just really good.
It's just so consistent.
Yeah.
It has a lot of ways to deal with threats, and
Yeah.
the direct damage is finishing off games.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's just a lot of good synergy here and a lot of nice overlap. The Reed is not completely out of the game. He is
Sure.
on 14. This Pristine Talisman is going to do some work. We do have a jungle barrier that's going to draw him a card when it enters the battlefield, which also can stem some of this bleeding. But also, Ivan's top decks are good because there's just the murderous red cap that he drew that can just do some things. And now we have a go for the throat that's going to deal with this jungle barrier. So it's just like Ivan just has an answer for everything Reed is trying to deploy here.
Ooh.
It looks like Reed has a lightning bolt to deal with the Mayhem Devil. And then he's going to sack it off and just chip away for 1 damage here.
Okay, with the devil off the board, Reed's probably feeling a little bit better.
A little bit better. Ivan has 1 card in hand, but he also has an Unearth to bring back this Mayhem Devil. So it was just a huge 2-for-1 for Reed. Or for Ivan here, sorry. This is what I mean. Like, that Unearth is just really good because it just brings back these signpost sacrifice cards. So we have a Fact or Fiction here from Reed. Hopefully we can get something decent here. So we have a Yavimaya Elder, a Force of Will, a Utopia Sprawl, Llanowar Elves, and an Opportunity, which will allow Reed to draw a bunch of cards. So Ivan's just figuring out the best Fact or Fiction pile here, just to make it as difficult as possible for Reed to decide which cards to take here. I do love me a good Fact or Fiction. I like making people think.
Yeah, it's such a weird card.
It's a very unusual blue card, but I love when people play it because it's just like, yes, I'm going to make the situation really difficult for you. You have to beat me, but you also have to give me the worst cards in the situation. So it looks like Reed it's decided to go for the Llanowar Elves, the Force of Will, and the Yavimaya Elder. And this Elder is going to be put into play now, along with this Llanowar Elves. And these are just probably going to be on Chub Block duty because they do both have 1 toughness, which Mayhem Devil is very easily able to pick off. All right, let's see what Reed draws here. Not sure what Reed can draw in this situation that can get him out of it. He's probably just going to keep this Force of Will up. Because he can just cast it for the 5 mana, doesn't need to exile a card here. So you have a Zulaport Cutthroat, which is another reward for the sack payoff, but it's just Ivan has nothing to generate that engine right now. But he's deploying a nice board state. He's just waiting to top deck something that can just chain off with this Mayhem Devil and Zulaport Cutthroat in play.
Right, so he's under no pressure.
No pressure. He's at 18 as well. That's a fine life total. Like, Reed is able to stabilize his life total thanks to this Pristine Talisman. Even if he's got nothing to play, he can just tap at the end of turn just to gain 1 life. And now Reed is just debating on what to do here. So we're going to gain 1 life from this Pristine Talisman, and we're going to sack off this Yavimaya Elder to get some lands out of our deck because we don't want to draw them as further into the game we get. Reed just wants some good top decks here. Because the last thing you want to do in a high stakes game, because this if you lose a game in this top 64 draft, you are not top 8 in CUBECON. So there's a lot on the line here. And who just likes top deck? No one likes top deck in lands, right?
No. That's the worst.
It's the worst, right?
Yeah. There's like a mantra, screw beats flood.
Yeah.
It's so true.
Yeah. And we've got Growth Spiral here, which allows Reed to play another land and draw a card. Hopefully Reed can just find something here to stabilize, because Ivan is starting to run out of gas, but his top decks are looking really good here. Also,
Reed has like 4 cards in hand.
yes, he has 4 cards in hand and a bundle of lands. Do you have a favorite basic land? Like a favorite art?
I love the Infinity foils.
Ooh, the
Galaxy.
Infinity ones are nice. Like the spacey ones.
Yeah.
Spacey magic is quite cool.
How about you?
So I'm kind of old school. I really like the basics they did in the 2000s. So WotC released a series of basics called APAC and Eurolands, and they were lands based on places in Europe and
That's pretty cool.
in like Asia. So there's like a mountain that's Mount Fuji. There's an island that is Venice. There is a plains that is Australia because there's some kangaroos in the art, that kind of thing, which is really sweet. They're really expensive and hard to get hold of now. I would love WotC to do that again because it just adds a little bit of charm, a little bit of geography to it.
It's very cool.
I've got a bunch of the forest in my Tron deck because there's a forest art that is from Nottingham, which is a county in England that I was born in. So it's just like I have that nice little attachment to it as well. So it looks like Reed is stemming the bleeding here. This pristine talisman is doing a bunch of work. And we now have a jury, which is another good sacrifice option. Let me pull up Jury for a second here. So Jury, Master of the Review. He's a 1/1 human shaman. So whenever you sacrifice a permanent, put a +1/+1 counter in Jury, Master of Review. And when Jury dies, you can deal that much damage equal to any target based on Jury's power.
That is brutal.
Yep. Fortunately, oh no, looks like Reed's out of it. Oh, that's a shame. So it looks like Ivan will make it to 1-0. That does mean Reed is out of the top 8, which is a huge shame because he has been running really, really hot all weekend, dropped only 2 games, and one of those games was he decided to disappear for a Magic quiz show and then came back to 2-1 the draft. And we will be going up to our backup match here. See who we've got on camera. So we've got Mike Schmidt and Eric Evans. So it looks like we have a... trying to get up to speed here.
Chupacabra.
So we have a Chupacabra. It looks like a Flicker Wisp, I believe, the white card from Mike Schmidt. My guess that Mike has a blue-white blink deck because I can see I saw a Cloud Blazer in Mike's graveyard. And we have a Prophetic Titan here, which is probably one of my more favorite recent additions to the cube. So it's a Prophetic Bolt, so it does 4 damage on ETB. And if you have Delirium, you can look at the top 4 cards and put one of those in your hand.
And in blank, that's backbreaking.
Yeah, right. Even if you don't have Delirium, it's just nice to have this 4 damage spell.
On the battlefield right now, is that equipment? What?
So that's a Loxodon Warhammer.
Okay.
So Eric's just played a a Noise Marine, which is one of the cards from Universes Beyond Warhammer. And when it ETBs, you cascade. So I believe it's a 5 mana spell, so you cascade, so you can cast something that's 4 mana value or less. And when Noise Marine enters the battlefield, you deal X damage based on the amount of spells you've cast that turn. So at least does 2, because it counts itself and the cascade. It's just a really fun addition. I'm not huge on the Warhammer, on the Universes Beyond cards, but this is just a really fun design.
And that foiling is pretty cool. It looks like underwater.
Yeah, the Surge foils are pretty nice. It makes coverage a little harder because it's really hard to read because the foiling is just so striking. But yeah, that was just a really nice addition because it's a fun blink target because you can just repeatedly ping stuff. And Red just wants that nice top end to deal with threats. But yeah, the equipment that Eric has on the battlefield is a Loxodon Warhammer. Loxodon Warhammer is just a really classic equipment that is able to deal lots and lots of damage by giving the creature you control trample and lifelink. And plus, there's a happy elephant on the art with the hammer.
Very cute.
Yeah.
Yes. So is there a dedicated equipment deck?
There isn't. So there isn't a huge amount of artifacts in the cube. There are a couple of equipment. So I have this. I have Bone Splitter, which is a classic artifact from Mirrodin days. And I also have like artifacts, stuff like Gingerbrute that can wear that stuff really well. There is a couple of like living weapon equipment, so like mortar pods in here, which is really good in the sacrifice deck. But there isn't a dedicated strategy because it's just really hard to have something that can tutor for those because Stoneforge Mystic is like a rare.
Yeah.
I think equipments are fun because it makes combat interesting. But yeah.
And what is the land that has counters on it?
That is a vivid. It's one of the vivid lands. I always get these mixed up because they all sound the same. So this is a vivid creek. They were first introduced in Lorwyn. So when it enters the battlefield, you put 2 charge counters on it. It taps with blue, but if you remove a charge counter, you can add any mana of any color. So these lands are pretty high priority when it comes to this cube because it allows you to splash. And there is some counters manipulation in the cube, so you can always add counters to your Vivid land, allowing you to cast different mana spells, different colored mana spells. So it looks like Mike's just rumbling in with this Prophetic Titan because it is a pretty good win condition. So we have a Fanatic Amogus here. It's not going to do a huge amount because your devotion to red is not high, but it can wear this Lockstorm Warhammer really well. And it looks like Eric's won this round because I don't think you can beat a Fanatic Amogus. And I think even when it entered the battlefield, it would do 1 damage because the devotion to red is 1 because it counts for itself. So it looks like Eric has a Rakdos-y mid-range deck by the looks of it. Couldn't see much else. It seemed like there was a good red top end with like Fanatic Amogus and Noise Marine. I really want to see more of Mike's deck because I'm a little biased and I love Blink decks. I love to see the Cloud Blazer and the Flicker Wisp.
And you said Reflector Mage as well?
Reflector Mage is a really fun card if it was drafted in this cube. But yeah, just flickering Flicker Wisps is just fun. So.
Unless you're playing a Strip Mine and the Flicker Wisp on bounce lands. That's
yeah,
not fun
I have Flicker Wisp many bounce lands, and that's the kind of cube it is at times. You can do these degenerate things. Granted, they don't come up often, but you can do them. Like you can do degenerate things in Vintage Cube once in a while.
So
Right.
what made you go from being an avid cuber to wanting to make your own cube? Like, what was the inspiration there?
So I was like thinking ahead, really. So there will come a point in my life that I will be done with Magic, quote unquote. I will not be playing it anymore. I might move on from it at some point.
What?
You know, in a way, like you kind of get old, you kind of move on, you find different hobbies, right? So if there ever comes a point that I'm like, you know what, I don't really play or I don't work in Magic anymore. I've moved on from it. I really wanted this time capsule, which is my cube that I can just crack out once in a while with my friends. And because Cube is basically your own board game. You're making your own Magic board game, and you can curate it however which way you want. If there's a really cool thing that you love about Magic, you can incorporate that into the cube. Like Zach Barish, who was here this weekend, he has a Cascade cube where you get a Maelstrom Nexus token, where every first spell you cast has Cascade. Because he loves just that snowbally sort of effect. So I just really wanted something that encapsulates what I love about Magic, which is lower rarity cards and lower rarity formats. That I can just crack out with my friends who I haven't seen in years, and it's just like, yeah, do you want a cube? And it's like, yeah, sure. It's just a really fun way to celebrate Magic. And it's a really good way to express yourself as well. You're like, yeah, Emma really likes lower rarity cards, so she must love stuff like Pauper. And then someone can be like, have like a Teamer cube, and they just go, yeah, I just love the color pairing Teamer. I love these 3 colors. I want to make a cube around it. It's a really good way to see personality with the cube curators.
Okay, but I'm not sold on you quitting Magic. I don't think anybody ever does
I don't
that.
think I will, but you know what I mean? There'll come a point where my time in Magic is going to be less.
Sure.
So I'm not saying I'm going to get rid of my collection, but having a cube is just a really nice way to kind of celebrate that. So this is a Rafine's Informant. So when it ETBs, it draws a card.
And then you discard the card?
Yeah, it connives on. It connives. It's from Streets of New Capenna. It's just a nice filler that you can just get rid of something that you may have drawn like too many lands. It's just nice to trade that for a fresh card.
Yeah, card selection.
In white, of all things.
Great.
So it looks like Eric has a Reinforced Raiding here, which is just like a 1 mana 2/2.
And it goes back to hand after combat?
Yeah, it basically has dash. So really nice card for the mono red aggro decks, which are quite good in this cube, just to have that really low curve and just kill people so you can go for lunch. Because I like lunch. So it looks like Mike is more of a Jeskai deck, because I see a Prophetic Titan and a Prophetic Bolt. The fact that he's primarily white-blue means he has that Vivid Grove, which means he can splash the red. And Prophetic Bolt and Prophetic Titan are really good in this cube, just because it's 2-for-1s. Okay, so Eric has played a Swamp here. We do have a Savage Lands as well. So we're going to play a Thopter Engineer, which makes a... Well, it won't make a Thopter on ETB because Mike is going to exclude that, which counts as a spell and draws a card. This is game 3 here as well, which I didn't realize. So whoever wins this gets to get ever closer to that CUBECON top 8. Which will be the Vintage Cube, which is probably one of the best iterations of Vintage Cube in Magic since it started, to be honest.
Everyone seems to adore Vintage Cube.
I love Vintage Cube. It's been really cool to see Ryan Spain, who has taken over that, just to go, yep, this could do with some changes. Granted, I'm a little bit salty about some of it because Riftwind Cloudscape is not in the cube anymore, which is one of my favorite cards. But I understand the changes because there is some nostalgia, but you can keep things nostalgic while making things interesting. So Mike played a Wasteland there that got rid of the Savage Lands. So Eric is cut off green, but he also has this Vivid Land that can mitigate that too. So we're going to Fork Bolt this Rafine's Informant. Going to see if Mike has any responses here. He could very well have some blink spells. Oh, so we've got Saruman's Trickery here. So he's just going to hard cancel this and make a 1/1 Orc token. Orc Army token, sorry. Because it is a Lord of the Rings card. And there are a lot of Orcs in Middle-earth. How do you feel about the Universes Beyond stuff? Are you a fan of it? Indifferent?
I mean, I think it's cool because it will bring other people into Magic, hopefully.
Sure, yes.
But
it's
a lot.
You're not going to play Bilbo Baggins in your cube, for example, with Doctor Who.
I mean, I'm strictly limited.
Yeah.
All I do is draft. So
Yeah, draft limited is the best form of Magic, along with cube. Do you have a favorite limited format?
Like set?
Yeah, like limited set format.
Original Eldraine.
Ooh, that's a good one. I do like that one. I think my favorite, so I'm biased here. My favorite is Khans of Tarkir because that's when I started.
Yeah.
But I also really enjoyed Strixhaven.
Yeah.
Like, I really like these 2-color formats that are clear signposts when it comes to drafting. I also really enjoyed the Brothers War because I really like the artifact synergies and all the unearthed stuff you could do. Wizards have done a really, really good job in the last few years making these really fun, interesting limited formats. And adding like bonus sheet stuff just makes it more interesting, right?
I think so. Because you never know what you're going to get.
Stuff like with Wilds of Eldraine with enchantments, it's just like, yeah, I can curiosity people in limited, and that is sweet.
And Bitter Blossom.
Yes, Bitter Blossom seems a really fun one. So it looks like Mike is going to play a Master Splicer here, which just makes a 3/3 on ETB.
Oh.
It's a really good blink target because you can just slowly make an army of golems. It does make it a 4/4 thanks to Master Splicer. And it looks like Mike here is just slowly gumming up this board. We have a Rafine's Informant, we have an Orc token, and it looks like Eric's going to concede here because he's just not been able to draw what he needed.
Right.
It looks like that Wasteland did a lot of work there, stripping away that Savage Lands. Cool. So there was some fun Magic in there.
Definitely.
Went a little bit longer than Reed's game. Unfortunately, Reed has lost his third round, so he will not be able to top 8. But Ivan has a good chance because he has drafted this really solid Rakdos Sacrifice deck. And Ivan also top 8 at CubeCon last year, so he is looking to run that back. And back-to-back top 8s of an event like CubeCon is quite the feat because you're playing all these different cubes, all these different mechanics, and you're just like, yep, I'm just going to top 8 it. And he's looking to win this time.
Right. So I think Cube is one of the more skill-intensive
Right.
drafts.
I
that you
was
can do.
saying this to Andy, who I was commentating with yesterday. It's just like seeing someone like Reiji come to this event who's won Pro Tour for Exit Obi-Wan, who's a top 8 world champion, and they've come to CUBECON and technically lost one match, or like lost 2 matches this weekend. And that's like the other end of the spectrum when it comes to Magic. You have this high competitive thing, and then you have this cube thing. The fact there's one player that can do that is highly impressive. And I'm also jealous because I wish I was that good, but that's why I'm here and not playing out there. So
Well, someone once told me a wise saying: "Get good, scrubs."
I am a scrub. I will do my best to get good. But yeah, shall we talk about one of our sponsors?
Sure.
Cool. So let's talk about Card Castle. So exclusive sponsor at CUBECON University here. So Card Castle is just a really fun way to look at all Cube content. Everything's in your smartphone. It's a really good way to track your collection. I know I'm terrible at buying cards that I've already bought that I didn't realize I already had. We've all been there. So Card Castle is just a really fun and a really easy way to access your Magic collection on your smartphone. Maybe you want to inventory your cards so you know which cards to eventually get rid of. It's really good for someone like me that is just like ADHD brain, just forgets stuff. And I'm like, yeah, I need this card for this deck. And then I have like 5 of them in my pile on my desk. Because why would I want to sort out the cards on my desk? Because that's work and just want to put it off, right?
I love sorting cards, but I have to be in a specific mindset for it because I think it's so relaxing to go through everything.
You can sort my cards out next time. Because I don't mind doing it, but there comes it's like washing the dishes, right? If you leave it for too long, it becomes a huge problem and you're punished for procrastinating. And I feel that way with sorting cards.
Right. So I have ADHD.
Yeah.
And a tip, I would say try to use a Pomodoro timer.
Okay,
It's
that's a good one.
25 minutes. And then you just, for some reason, your brain gets tricked into trying to get things done fast. It gamifies the task.
Oh, okay. As a degenerate Magic player, that might be something I have to do. But either way, check out Card Castle. They can help your Magic inventory, keep your collection tidy, and you can use it on your smartphone or on your desktop.
Cool.
So we should hopefully have round 2 coming soon. I believe they're just finishing up right now. So Q comes this weekend. Today is the last day. What has been your favorite moment from this weekend?
Well, oh gosh, there's so many good ones. The last match that I played,
Yeah.
I just had so much fun. I was like giggling the whole time.
Right. What was
It was a great match.
What was the cube that you were playing? Do you remember?
It was you.
It was
this
my
one. Yeah,
cube. Oh
yeah,
my
it was-
god. Oh
yeah,
my god.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
great. Yeah, that's great. My favorite moment from this weekend for me was top decking that mountain to beat Sam Black in the
That was
Invitational
awesome.
because it was really fun.
Yeah.
And just seeing the light bulb moment from Sam when it came to my turn, he was like, wait, I think I'm dead because he saw all these cards due to this thought seize. Took the Elite Spellbinder, which was correct, but I just don't think he quite clocked like the maths that he could be dead if I drew this mountain. And he was like, I'm literally dead to a mountain. I'm like, great, I'm going to draw this mountain. You are dead. And it was just really good to catch that on coverage and just get some hype for the event. So now we're just going to go to a quick break before we carry on with round 2. Don't go anywhere. And make sure you're following NRG because they're doing a fantastic job this weekend. So hello, welcome back to day 3 of CubeCon. So I'm Emma Partlow, this is Jamie Regati. We are covering my Peasant Cube, which is really exciting in this Top 64 event. So let's break it down what the Top 64 means for today. So there are 64 players left competing today for that elusive CubeCon trophy. There are 8 cube drafts going on right now, and you need to 3-0 one of those drafts to get into the top 8. And that top 8 will mean you get to play the Magic Online Vintage Cube, and more importantly, you get to be crowned the CubeCon champion if you manage to go 3-0. So basically, you need to go undefeated today to win that trophy, which is no pressure, especially when we have coverage. So just to put everyone up to speed, so Rejuke did lose the first round, so he will not be able to top 8 this event. However, Ivan, who top 8'd last year's CubeCon, is 1-0, drafted an incredibly strong Rakdos Sacrifice deck, and he is looking to have a revenge story, basically. He is very serious about winning this event, so expect to see him in the top 8 because the deck he drafted looked really, really strong. And made very quick work of Rejuke, which is kind of scary when you think about it, given it's Rejuke.
Yeah.
So yeah, I believe players are shuffling up right now for round 2. And when that comes through, we will go down to the feature match area.
I have a question.
Go for it.
What does it feel like to watch people draft your cube?
It's great, but also scary, if that makes sense. Like
Why scary?
it's great in the sense that cool. I've had like you've had your Reed Dukes, your Sam Blacks, your Caleb Durbois just wanting to draft your cube because they love playing cube and they want to try all these different flavors. It's scary because they're really good competitive players and they're really good at breaking things because it's what they kind of do and they're really good at. So I'm a bit scared because it's just like. Maybe they've found something that I've not realized before, or put a card in that I didn't realize, like the ceiling on it. Fortunately, I don't think that's happened yet, so we're so far so good. So we are back in the feature match area. We've got Ivan Meyer, who is on Rakdos Sacrifice. I believe Ian Braverman is on Boris Aggro, when I had a quick look earlier, but I could be wrong. So we're just shuffling up now, trying to sculpt some nice hands before we kick off.
So Ivan is taking a mulligan.
Yep, so he's going to go to 6. Fractal Sacrifice does mulligan pretty well. If you don't have those payoffs or a low curve, it's really hard to beat. I believe Ian's on Boris Aggro, that I saw. And as we saw in the game 1 of round 1, when Ivan just went this 1-2-3 curve of carrying feeder into Lampard, into Judith, and then into Murderous Redcap, just turning everything into a lightning bolt. That's how quick this Rakdos Sacrifice deck can do. It can work that way. Like, you don't need this sacrifice theme. You can just have this aggressive curve. And Reed was on this Simic Lands deck, so Ivan was able to go under Reed quite easily. I am wrong. Ian is not on a Boris Aggro. It'd be interesting to see what Ian is on today. So this is so I have like smoke sleeves just because of the color of my sleeves. Ivan is playing a red tap land. The Madman's Treachery is a Zendikar DFC that steals a creature, but you can flip it over to play a tap land. So it was a red tap land. So we have a jury master of review here.
Off to a great start. That's an important piece for the sacrifice deck.
Yep. Someone asked in the chat, I don't believe the top 8 cube is proxied. I believe it is actual power that you're going to see today, which is super exciting. Because, don't get me wrong, I would love to hold a Black Lotus.
Yeah.
Just like a proper beta Black Lotus. Sounds really cool. So yeah, I believe the cards are, they're real. They're not proxy. Every card in this CUBECON that's been submitted in the cubes are all real. So it's going to be really exciting to see that later today. So it looks like Ian has played one of the blue splicers, which the name has escaped me for a very brief moment. It's playing a wing splicer. So wing splicer just creates a 3/3 golem, and it gives your golem creatures flying. So he has a 3/3 flyer, which is a nice evasive threat here. All right, so Ivan is deliberating on what to do next. He has 4 mana in play. He's got a couple of lands in hand, which is a little too many than what you want for the sacrifice deck, but I do see a Firebolt, which is going to chip off this Wing Splicer. Now the golem's just a 3/3. So Ivan has just played one of the biggest downshifts for this cube. It was printed as a rare in Core Set 2021. It is now a common.
It's now dead, too.
And it's now dead as well. It's a really good sacrifice outlet that allows you to sacrifice a card and sacrifice a creature and you exile some cards from top of your library. But there's also a Riftwind, Cloudscape, and a Mother of Runes to tie things up. Mother of Runes is a really nice one here. Just being able to put pro-red or pro-black on your creatures when there's a lot of pinging involved. I do love a good Mother of Runes. But unfortunately, Ivan does not like a good Mother of Runes, and it's just been go for the throated. And this Dark Dweller Oracle is being replayed, which I assume was bounced off the Riftwind Cloudscape. It is wild to have a card that was once a rare and is now a common.
That is
like one of the most aggressive downshifts I think I've seen in a long time. But I love it because it means I get to put it in my queue.
All right, so Ian has 4 cards in hand.
Yep. So we're playing a Timeless Witness, which is a slightly bigger Eternal Witness. So you can bring a card back from the graveyard to your hand. So it looks like it's going to be that Wing Splicer. You can also eternalize Timeless Witness from your graveyard to recast it and make a 4/4 just to get another card out of your hand. So we have a Slingang commander here. This is going to get pretty disgusting. So it makes 2 Goblin tokens on ETB. And if you're able to find a sacrifice outlet, which we do with this Dark Dwelling Oracle, and the Zilliport Cutthroat is going to deal a lot of damage. This is going to make Jury really big. So Ivan's cleverly going to combat here, and then he's going to sack, and he could very well sack off these tokens to make Jury bigger, which he's going to do now. And then it will trigger Zilliport Cutthroat. So he's going to lose 2, gain 2. Jury's going to get 2 counters on it, so it's going to become a 3/3. Which is going to block this Timeless Witness. And it will go to the graveyard. That was a really sweet top deck.
Yeah. Ian's in trouble here, I think.
Yeah. I think Ivan has drafted probably one of the best Ratdol Sacrifice decks I have seen when people play this cube. It seems he's cleverly navigated the situation. I'd be curious to find out what was his form pick one. And if he was like, it was a Mayhem Devil, and I just sculpted my deck around this, which I've done, and it's a reasonable thing to do in this cube. So Ian's going to go at combat here. We do have this Riftwing Cloudscape, which will be able to get some damage in, and we just have this Golem. But Ivan's just like, life's a resource. I have a Zilliport Cutthroat.
Yeah, he doesn't really care about the damage.
I'm good to go.
Right.
Oh, we have this Angler Drake. So this is a really nice top end for the blue decks. It is able to bounce something, if I remember correctly, quickly.
And
yep. So it will bounce a target creature of the owner's hand. So I believe Ivan has just put something back to hand, and it is a massive threat. It is a 4/4 flyer. So it seems here Ian has a lot of flying matters stuff with a little bit of counter magic. So we're going to replay that Jury that was bounced. Granted, it doesn't have it's not free power anymore, and here comes the Murderous Redcap.
There's the cutie.
It's not very cute in the minute. I don't think Ian's going to agree with you there. So yeah, this Murderous Redcap's going to do a lot of damage. And given that there is this Dark Dwelling Oracle, he can sacrifice it. The Murderous Redcap's going to come back, and Ivan will be able to exile top card of his library and play that card, because Dark Dwelling Oracle is a really good engine. And it's also going to buff up this Jury. You can see the amount of synergy that's just going on here. There's just a lot of things he can do.
Right. It's like snowballing at this point.
Yeah, it's really hard just to pick apart, because you're going to take some damage or some resources in the process. It's really brutal.
And there are no wraths in this.
There is wraths in the cube, but the wraths are like in black. You have Golden Demise, which gives all creatures -2/-2. It gets bigger if you have Ascend. And there's also the Feast of Succession that we saw earlier that gives all creatures -4/-4, and you become the Monarch. I believe there's also a white board wipe in here. I can't remember if I took it out or not, but there is a few board wipes. It's going to be really hard for Ian to pick away at all these threats, just the amount of synergy available here, especially with this Murderous Redcap. Because he's able to deal 2, make Jury bigger, trigger Zilliport Cutthroat, and exile the top card of his library. And also, Ivan could just draw the Unearth just to bring something back as well. There's just a lot of redundancy in Ivan's deck here. Even though Ivan's actually on 4, might just be a case he might lose to just some flyers here. This Angler Drake is looking pretty threatening.
Yeah, I guess if he can't deal with it, it's probably a 2-turn-ish clock.
Yeah. So this is one of the Zendikar DFC cards. I just need to get the name up quickly just to make sure I can pronounce it right.
That was the indestructible one?
I believe it's the indestructible. It seems destructible combat trick. I just need to find it. Why can't I find it? Okay, so Serigi Shelter. So it's a 2-mana white instant. Target creature you control gains protection from a color of your choice this turn. But you can also flip it on the other side, and it can be a tapped white mana source. The Zendikar DFCs have been super good for this cube.
Yeah.
That is probably the Magic set that has had the most impact in this cube. There is a bunch of cards I've added that are not only just good cards on the front side, but they allow you just to play some lands on the back.
It's fantastic.
Like Ballad Ged Recovery is a really good one. It's a regrow for 3 mana, but you can also play it as a land, and it's just nice to have that option. You're like, oh crud, I'm kind of mana screwed. I can just play this tap land and not play it as a spell, or you can bounce the land later on and then play it as a spell. There's a lot of synergy there.
And Kabira Takedown is another one.
Yep. Kiriba Takedown's another one. I have Malakir Rebirth, which is another good one where if you want to reanimate something, sometimes you see it in Modern in the scam decks. Just if someone wants to remove a creature, it's like, nope, I'm going to bring this back. I'm going to 2-for-1 you.
Ivan looks like he's doing math.
Yep, he's doing carrion feeder math, so that's not a good sign for Ian. He needs to see if he can win here, because if not, this Angler Drake will be a problem here. Or can he kill the Angler Drake? That might be a thing. That might be a consideration here also.
Does he still have a sack outlet on board?
He has this Dark Dwelling Oracle. It does cost 1 mana. He also has this Carrion Feeder, which is just a free sack outlet.
Okay.
So there is some things he can do here. He just needs to do the maths. He needs to do some goblin maths, basically, because we have a Murderous Red Cap and we have this Dark Dwelling Oracle.
I'm just like envisioning a goblin like in math class. Like,
yeah.
doing math
Okay,
problems.
so we're going aggressive. Ivan has a lot of options he can do here, so he just wants to see how Ian is going to block this attack, and then we'll probably, very likely, see some sacrifice shenanigans.
Oh.
This jury has potential to go really big. I appreciate the little stick Mangolem tokens as well.
How much damage is getting through? I see.
So Slinglang is a 2/1. This jury's getting blocked, so it can get bigger, but the Wing Splice is a 1/1. The Dark Dwelling Oracle is a 1/1, I believe, and this Murderous Red Cap is a 3/2. So there is some damage here. It would just be interesting to see if Ivan wants to do any shenanigans just to try and clear the board a little bit. I also believe Ivan has no cards in hand, so he only has to work with what's in front of him, but there's a lot of synergy here. There's a lot of game actions he can just take just to manipulate this board state. And Ivan just needs to figure out how to either survive or win this turn, because his Angler Drake will win the game. Sometimes just big fat flyers can always get there, so... Which is something that happens a lot in Limited. Sometimes you think, oh, your deck's kind of mopey, but yeah, I just have this fatty flyer that someone might not be able to deal with, and you can just win.
Yeah.
I bet you've done that a few times in Limited.
Oh, yeah.
So, yep, I'm just going to play this evasive threat, and hopefully you don't have an answer for it. Oh, wait, I won the game. This is great. More of this, please.
And so, like, Ivan has answers, but not necessarily soon enough.
I don't think Ivan has any cards in hand.
Right.
I know he doesn't. So Ivan has a lot of answers in his deck.
Yeah.
There's just a lot of removal. We saw the Hero's Downfall. We saw the... what else did we see? So we saw Hero's Downfall, which is a really good one. I think there's a couple of burn spells in there. We saw the Unearth as well, which is a really good way just to 2-for-1 your opponent, because you can bring back this Jury or this Murderous Red Cap and continue to do more shenanigans. There's a lot of redundancies in Ivan's deck. Ivan just can't draw too many lands. Like, he has a lot of lands in play now. 6 is quite a lot for this build just to draw into. But it looks like Ivan's going to do stuff. So we're going to suck this Slingang Lieutenant to Carrion Feeder, I believe, or the Dark Dwelling Oracle, and to put a counter on Jury.
So he only has one blocker. Can Carrion Feeder block?
Carrion Feeder cannot block. But that was just put into play this turn, so it does have Summoning Sickness. It's just a free sacrifice outlet because the Dark Dwelling Oracle costs 1.
Yeah.
So just having that around is really useful here. And Ivan is just looking to do some sacrifice stuff here just to make sure he can gain enough life just to fog this Angler Drake for a few turns, where Ivan can hopefully draw some removal or just something just to close out this game. So we're going to sack the Carrion Feeder to the Dark Dwelling Oracle, exile the top card of our library, and I hope you can play something. Unfortunately, it's a land, but you also don't want to draw that land on your next turn.
Sure. So it helps a little bit.
It helps a little bit.
But it's not what you want to see right now.
Right. I would love to have a Hero's Downfall for this Angler Drake because my opponent's almost tapped out, and we have seen some counter magic from Ian in this game. But it looks like things are getting pretty close. I think Ivan can at least fog this Angler Drake for a turn. He's going to take 7 because of this 3/3 Golem too. But also Ian's on 6, so he might be on blocking duty because this Jury is currently a 5/5.
So at this point...
And if Jury dies,
right.
he can deal 5 damage as well. So it might be a case of finding a sack outlet or killing this Jury just to kill the opponent, right?
So he's tanking a little bit here.
Yep, he needs to figure out how to survive, which does take a lot of mental bandwidth when you're playing Magic. It's like, how do I not die this game, but how do I also try to win this game? Because it's really tempting to be aggressive here, but on the flip side, it's just like a game of chicken, really.
Yeah, it's so close.
Yes. So Ian is definitely in the tank here. There is a lot to play for here this weekend because if you free out a draft, you do get to top 8 at this CUBECON event. And you do get to play the Vintage Cube. If you do lose a game in any of the Cube drafts that are played today, you are out of top 8 convention. So there is a hell of a lot to play for here. It's a lot of pressure when you think about it. It's like, yeah, I need to 3-0 and then I need to 3-0 again. It's like you can't. There's no margin for error, right?
And I mean, all the players are pretty solid that we've seen.
Oh,
right?
yeah, like the players are like ridiculously good.
Yeah.
But it's even then, like, these players are great. They have like a 60-65% win rate. That's like 2 out of 3 wins a lot of the time. And you need to play better than that to try and get in this top 8 for CUBECON. And they just make it look so easy, and I don't know how they do it. Oh, we can flashback this Firebolt as well. I forgot about this Firebolt. That's just another 2 damage. Okay, so Ian is still very much in the tank here, figuring out how he can not die next turn.
And try to close the game out.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough.
Or a way to gain life, maybe. Just something just to stem the bleeding a little. But it's very hard when Ivan has just drafted a really, really strong Ragdoll Sacrifice deck that is able to attack on a various axes. It can be aggressive, it can be synergistic, it can do the sacrifice thing. It has this controlling aspect where you have all this removal while just slowly punishing the opponent's life total by just doing sacrifice things.
I love Rakdos. That's my favorite guild.
Really?
Yes.
My favorite guild, I don't know, my favorite guild's Boros. I like being aggressive.
Cool.
When there's a Vintage Cube, I always draft mono white.
And you probably win a lot.
Yeah, I
get
do.
Under decks. Yeah.
I remember a time playing Vintage Cube where mono white was like the most like underrated cube deck in Vintage Cube because no one played it because no one wants to play mono white because it doesn't seem exciting.
Yeah.
You're not doing the silly Storm, Time Spiral, Black Lotus kind of stuff, right?
People want to do the like crazy combos.
And I'm like, nah, I want to play the Student Warfare. Let's go. And everyone's just like, okay. And it's like, yeah, we'll play this game. And they're like, why? And it's like, you'll see, because I'll just play all this stuff. So we're going to flash back this. We're going to flash back this Firebolt. But it seems Ian has channeled a Colossal Sky Turtle, which is another sweet card in this queue from Kamigawa Neon Dynasty.
And they're scooping up.
And they are scooping up. So, okay. Just double checking what's going on here. Yep, so we saw that Colossal Sky Turtle. I believed it was channel away. I just need to remind myself what the 2 channel abilities are quickly.
One is a bounce and one is return something.
So the green ability was you discard the Sky Turtle and you return target card from your graveyard to your hand, or you discard it and return a creature to opponent's hand. So yeah, that was an interesting game. It went down to the wire much more than I thought. It seemed that Ivan was really close just to go off there. But with that, shall we talk about one of our sponsors?
Great. Yeah. We're going to talk about Card Conduit.
Do you like getting rid of magic cards? Those piles of shame that just are around on your, on your desk, in your bedroom. Maybe you struggle to open a door because it's just full of magic cards and you've just been putting it off for so long. Feels like Card Conduit is just really good just to go, yep, it's someone else's problem.
It's perfect. You just send in unsorted piles.
That's even better. I don't even have to sort them.
They sort it, they grade it, and they find the best buy list price.
That's even better.
Yep.
And then you can buy more cards and then have another pile of magic cards and then you repeat the process. I'm really bad at getting rid of cards, especially when they're valuable, because it's like talking about earlier about sorting cards. It's just punish you for procrastinating a bit, and if you leave it too late, you just have this mountain of cards, and it's like, great.
Well,
I should probably get rid of these, and Card Conduit can just go, it's fine, we got it for you, and that is just great, because I love peace of mind. I don't know about you.
I do. Yes, of course.
And especially as we're limited players, we have a lot of draft chats.
Yes.
We have a lot of bulk rares that we're never going to play because we don't really play constructed. So yeah, check out Card Conduit. They will make your life easier if you like to collect magic cards. And perhaps, you're just you look at that pile of shame in the corner. It's like, yeah, I should probably deal with this at some point. Card Conduit will do that for you. Right.
Do you collect anything in particular?
In Magic cards, not really. I'm not really much of a card collector. I'm someone that has cards, and if there are cards, they are in my decks. I do tell a lie. I do have a collection actually. I have a really small collection of cards that I have previewed in the past. So I have a small binder of all the cards that I've previewed in the last few years. And once I am done previewing cards and doing whatever, I want to get them all framed in chronological order.
That's pretty cool.
Of all the cards that I've previewed independently or with TCG Player. I think that's just a nice memento to go, yeah, I previewed these cards. This was really cool.
Yeah.
What about you? Do you collect any cards?
I do. I collect foil cuties.
Foil cuties. Do you have a foil Murderous Redcap?
I do.
Oh, excellent. What is the cutest Magic card that you own?
This might be pretty controversial.
Okay.
It's Stir the Sands.
Okay. Can we get Stir the Sands up, please? But I can't remember what this card does, if possible.
Well, there's just so there's two, there's a zombie and something else hyping on.
Yeah, okay.
But look at the Naga in the lower right corner. He's so excited. He's so energized. He's hyped to be there with those friends. He got invited to dinner.
Yeah, it's like a girl dinner, right?
Mm-hmm. And he's just so enthusiastically
happy to be here energy.
Yes.
I can respect that. And don't get me wrong, there are hundreds of people here today that are very happy to be here at CUBECon. Even though we are in the top 64, the main event is the top 64. There is a buck ton of open play going on right now. People are just open playing cubes and playing cubes that aren't in the main event. So there's just a lot of people just having a lot of fun right now before they head out later this evening. So Ivan is going down to 6, and as we mentioned earlier, Rakdos Sacrifice is really good at mulliganing just because the curve is so low and you're able to either be aggressive, deploy the sacrifice game plan, or just keep some removal spells just to keep the path clear.
So, this is anyone's game.
It is anyone's game. It'll be interesting to see what Ian draws here, because now he has an idea what he's up against. He's up against this really synergistic Rakdos deck that has a nice amount of removal and a nice amount of threats. But Ian also has answers. He has counter magic. He has this Colossal Sky Turtle. He has he has these really big flyers, like we saw the Angler Drake in the last round, that can just close out games if left unresolved. And it's a nice tempo play as well, because it bounces a creature back to the opponent's hand. So it looks like Ivan's keeping this 6. I assume Ian is keeping his 7. We have one of the Vivid Greenlands in play, so Vivid Grove. It allows Ian to tap that for blue mana if needed. So we also have a Plains here, and it looks like Ian has no turn 2 play, but Ivan has a Zillipot Cutthroat, which is a really nice sacrifice option, just setting up that board state there. So I would assume Ian is tapping for blue here, and we have a Reflector Mage, which is going to put the Zillipot Cutthroat back to hand, and he won't be able to cast it next turn.
Strong tempo.
I love me a good Reflector Mage, but I'm also a degenerate. So we have a Judith's Ghost Diva that's going to, if left unresolved, going to take over this game because it's a little bit of power and it punishes the opponent for trying to remove your creatures. That 1 damage just stack up a lot across the game.
Right. And Judy doesn't...
Oh, we have the Soul Herder. I was really excited because Soul Herder into Reflector Mage is a disgusting combination.
That's awesome.
I mentioned this at the start of the program, and I'm really happy I get to see it right now.
This is exactly what you wanted to see. Yeah, this is great.
I really like the Blink deck because it's just the kind of Magic I like to play. But we do have a Flaytongue Yearling for this Soul Herder.
Before it gets out of control.
Yeah, but we did see the Timeless Witness last game, so Ian can bring that back if needed. But this Reflector Mage has done a bunch of work already. So here's an Eternal Witness.
Already.
So looks like it's going to be a nice 2-for-1 here, and that Soul Herder is very likely going to come back pretty soon. And Flickering Eternal Witness is really nice in the late game because you just get those cards out of your graveyard.
So much value.
You can control the board with this Reflector Mage. You can, if it goes long enough, you can flicker back the Angler Drake. And it looks like Eternal Witness is going to get firebolted.
And that's Jury again?
That is, so this is Judith.
Oh, the Judith came back.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So they're very similar arts because they're both of the same frame. But yeah, this is a Judith. So she's going to take 1 here because of the Judith trigger. And it'll be interesting to see what Ian does next. Does he deploy the Soul Herder again, even though it's on an empty board? So we have an Avacyn's Pilgrim, which is just a nice mana dork. Gets a little awkward with this Judith if the creature does die. We have a Skin Render, so bye-bye Avacyn's Pilgrim. Ooh. And we're just going to rumble in for a bunch of damage here. And Ian is also choking on lands a little bit, which is a shame. So we have a Mist Meadow Witch here, which is a really nice blink payoff. But you don't want your blink payoffs to be on blocking duty, which is what they are doing right now, because this Judith and this Skin Render is going to push him for a hell of a lot of damage.
Right. And that Cutthroat is just
there, staring down at you, going, yeah, you will lose a life when one of my creatures die. It's a very intimidating threat. So this is a Blood Artist, which just as another, we're just stacking up on threats now. So we have the Hero's Downfall for the Mist Meadow Witch, and now Ivan's just going to push in for a buck ton of damage, and this game is going to be ending very quickly.
Yeah. As
mentioned earlier, this Rakdos Sacrifice deck can just be aggressive, and Judith is the perfect card to deal with that strategy. And there we go. So Ivan is now 2-0. Ian, for what it's worth, had a really nice deck. It's just a tad slow with the just the amount of aggression that Ivan's able to do with this Rakdos Sacrifice build.
Right, and stumbling on lands. I mean, Ivan was able to...
Yeah, like stumbled on lands. Like, to be fair, it looked like Ian kept a really good hand. He did have 3 lands and a bunch of interaction, but and a bunch of like blink payoffs, but Ivan just had the answers every single time.
Yeah.
So we're going to go up to the backup match now, as that game ended fairly quickly. So we've got Mike Schmidt and George Lowry playing right now. So it seems, based on what I can see here, that George Lowry has drafted a Selesnya countery token style deck, which is something you would like, Jamie, because I know you love Selesnya. And it looks like Mike has a nice pile of Jeskai cards. I see a Cloud Blazer in the graveyard. I see... Oh, what was the other blink payoff? Let me just get it up quickly. Looks like it's an Elite Guild. Cloudblazer and Elite Guild Mage. So the Elite Guild Mage is in the graveyard and Cloudblazer is in play. There is also a Seeker of the Way, which is a nice prowess payoff if there's any just like non-creature spells to trigger with it. The lifelink might be relevant in this matchup because there's a lot of tokens. There's this Rancor on the other side, so being able to just mitigate that would be really nice.
George's board is quite wide.
Yep. You must like the style of deck.
I love it. It's great.
We also, so on George's side, we do have a Spirited Companion who's a very good boy. We have a Fraven Inspector, which is one of the best Magic cards ever printed. And then we have a Citizen's Crowbar, a Rancor that are attached to these spirits. And it looks like we have a Journey to Nowhere on this Glimmer Point Stag, which is a really good blink target. It can tap down some threats. And it's also a 3/3, so it can get into battle quite nicely. In Mike's hand, it looks like we have a cast out, which is just a nice way to deal with any non-land permanents. I believe I see a repulse or a counter. So a repulse or an exclude in hand, which is just a nice counter spell. It seems like Mike's deck is a very sort of reactive deck, so it will offer plenty of answers, and if there's no answers, I will just progress my board state. So it looks like George is reanimating this Treetop Village, which will be a 3/3 with Trample. Is pretty nasty if you manage to can equip a Rancor to it. Or Citizen's Crowbar. But it looks like George is pantsing up this spirit, because these spirits do fly, and this Cloud Baser is tapped from attacking last turn. I do like a good Bogles deck. I used to play a lot of Bogles in Modern, so I like putting a lot of pants on stuff, so I can respect the strategy. So players are just figuring out what to do here with combat. It looks like George is going to rumble in with a whole lot of stuff.
2 flyers.
Maths is for blockers, folks. Maths is for blockers. So we have a cast out that we can cast with Flash. It's going to trigger prowess on the Seeker of the Way, which is going to block this Treetop Village quite nicely. And we're going to target this Journey to Nowhere, which means Mike can get back his Glimmer Point Stag.
What's the power and toughness on that?
Glimmer Point Stag is a 3/3.
Okay.
So it can block really well. It can also attack really well. Glimmer Point Stag is a really nice payoff for these Blink decks. Not that this is like a dedicated Blink deck, but it just has a nice bit of value. It also has Vigilance, so it's able to do quite a lot here.
Also a cutie.
It is a cutie. It's a cutie from Mirrodin. You should make a cuties commander deck. I don't know who would be the cutest commander, though. Must be really hard.
Do you think Luris is cute?
I mean, the baby's cute.
Yeah.
The baby, Luris's baby is very cute. Luris could work well. Okay, so we're still figuring out blocks here. See if George has anything up his sleeve, because he does have that 2 untapped mana, so he could very well have a combat trick here, or just something to fog the board. There is a Berserk in the cube. I believe Berserk is a sorcery, but that is something that we could see later on in this game. Okay. So Treetop Village. So we've had a bunch of damage come through. That Glimmer Point Stag has just done an incredible amount thanks to that cast out. And I believe the borderless card there is a Wall of Omens, which is an 0/4 when it ETBs you draw a card. So that attack wasn't really that great for George. It looks like Mike's been able to keep a lot of his threats around. He managed to unlock that Glimmer Point Stag.
Yeah.
The Seeker of the Way did some value, got some life back thanks to that prowess and lifelink. Be interested to see what George follows up here. Looks like George just played a Shepherd of the Flock, which is just a free one. The Adventure side, that is really good because it's able to bounce something back to hand. But it looks like Mike's in a more commanding position here, even though George has won the first game of this round.
Yeah, that cast out was big.
That cast out was very big, just to be able to lock away that Journey to Nowhere. So it looks like Mike's going to go into combat. We have the Cloud Blazer, which is pretty much going to go over for free. And then we have this Seek of the Way that has a lot of potential to deal a lot of damage thanks to that prowess and lifelink. I do see a Prophetic Bolt in Mike Smith's hand, which is a really nice one to deal here. It can just clean up any threat while triggering this prowess. I also see a Wasteland in Mike's hand, which is going to be a really nice answer for this Treetop Village. I believe it's a Wasteland. It kind of looks like a Wasteland. It's hard to tell. So, yep, here comes the Prophetic Bolt. It's going to trigger a whole host of things. And
All
we
right.
have the get classic game 2 handshake, even though it's 1-1. It happens to the best of us. I have done game 1 handshakes before if the game has gone way too long, because it just feels like it's the game has gone much longer than it has. So yeah, like Mike, it seems to have a really cool, not quite blink heavy deck, but just like a like a Jeskai like mid-range deck. There's just a lot of good individual cards. There's a lot of good removal in white. So you have your Journey to Nowheres and your cast outs, which are really hard to remove and get those cards back. But yeah, it's like with having a good time here. What have you enjoyed about CUBECON this weekend? Like, what's it like to be here and
Oh,
see
it's wonderful.
400 people just imagine being in a place where a cube is always going to fire.
Right. That's amazing. And
Right.
so this is Sunday, so not everybody's playing the main event anymore. It's only top 64.
Yeah.
But it's as full as it was yesterday.
Yeah.
Like people came back to hang out and play more Cube.
Like, this event hall has to close at some point, and it's going to be really hard to kick those people out because all they want to do is cube. I
That's
would not
great.
be surprised if there is like a lobby con after this where people are just going to invade a hotel and play lots more cube because they just do not want to stop. So that was round 2. We've got one more round to go. We're going to have, we've got one more round. We've got one more game after this, but we're going to get really close. I'm going to see if someone can beat Ivan with this ridiculously good Rakdos Sacrifice deck. I wouldn't be surprised if he goes 3-0 because it seems like he navigated the draft really well. I'd be really curious to see what was his pack 1 pick 1 and if he committed to Rakdos Sacrifice straight away or that it was passed to him. But yeah, we'll have to see what happens here. Hopefully people will sleep up pretty soon and we can get back to the feature match. What is your favorite card to draft in Cube? Is there like a particular card, like in Vintage Cube, for example?
I mean, I do love green, white, go wide stuff. So
Yeah.
if there's anything that supports that, I don't know if Tristani is in cubes.
Trostani used to be in the Cube. Trostani's a really fun one, especially like the Neuro Ravnica one, because it just makes like loads of tokens.
Yeah.
And has this weird ability where you can just like get back the stuff that people stole from you. Okay, so Mike has played a thriving land on white. I believe it's the red-white one, or it's the red land that he has named white. So this is an Anafenza Kintree Spirit, another recent downshift from Commander Masters. So it's a two mana 2/2, I believe, in white, and it has bolster. So when a creature enters the battlefield under your control, you can bolster one where you put a +1/+1 counter on it.
That's pretty sweet.
It's a really nice one because you can play mono white aggro in this cube. So there's plenty of like Savannah Lions and that kind of thing. And here's the goodest boy, but he's going to unfortunately get miscalced.
No.
So no card draw for you, but we're going to rumble in with this 2/2 Anafenza. How can you counter the good boy? I'm upset.
Well, I mean, it makes sense. Mike had mana open, wanted to use it, right?
Yeah.
But also, like, if this is a blink deck,
Yeah.
the companion's fantastic.
So George has played one of the Zendikar DFCs that turn it into a land. I believe that is a white source based on the color of the sleeve. So we have a Soltari Monk here, which is just a creature with shadow, but it's going to get excluded here. Or repulsed, sorry. And this Anafenza continues to get in. So we have a Dryad Militant here, which is a really nice card that deals with instants and sorceries in the graveyard. Looks like George is kind of, I don't know, I know it's like a green-white deck, but this feels very white-weenie.
Yeah.
And it looks like Mike has a Seal Away, which is a really nice answer. We have a Cast Out, we have a Mana Leak.
Mana Leak.
And we have I believe I see a Cloud Blazer in there as well. So Mike has plenty of options there. We also have this Wasteland, which is it's gonna do some things soon. We're gonna seal away this Anafenza before she gets out of control. And Mike's gonna keep up this Mana Leak and will literally counter
Probably anything.
at this point, depending on if George has another land. So we're going to rumble in with this 2/2 Dryad Militant, and it looks like, unfortunately, George is out of lands, which is a huge shame because this Wasteland's going to look really good blowing up this DFC Zendikar land. So, yeah, we've got a Cloud Blazer, so we're going to gain some life and draw some cards.
Great.
A really fun card back from Kaladesh Limited. And I also saw Mike drawing a Momentary Blink, which is really nice with this Cloud Blazer. You can just draw a bunch of cards, gain a bunch of life, and just have a good old time blinking away.
I don't know if George can keep up with that
Nope.
much value.
Nope. So we do have a Midnight Haunting here, which is going to get George some two Flying Spirit tokens. Probably on back blocking duty because this Cloud Blazer is going to probably be here for a little while. Oops, so we have an Usher of the Fallen, which is a really nice mono white like aggro style card. You kind of don't want to draw it right now. You kind of want that on turn 1 with this Anafenza. But we're just looking to come up the board with a bunch of counters thanks to Usher of the Fallen's boast ability.
So that's 8.
Yeah. And considering Mike's tapped out, he can't snap off this Mana League to deal with the Usher of Fallen. So George is just trying to go as wide as possible before Mike can like pull back into this game, because it feels like Mike has drafted the side of deck. The longer the game goes, the better chance he has of winning. So we have an Elite Guard Mage here, which is another flyer that can gain some life and draw some cards and just gum up this evasive board state. So also a Crystal Shard, which is a really a card that's really underappreciated in this cube. Very similar in the sense of Sentinel Glade. Like, people don't understand why Crystal Shard's in the cube and what it does. But it's the kind of card that if an opponent knows what they're doing, you will lose to it. And then you're like, yes, I'm going to draft this from now on because it's really good. It's just a lot of synergy and shenanigans you can do with the card. So we're going to blink this Cloud Blazer. Be still my heart. Give me all the card draw and all the life gain, which is relevant considering Mike is currently on now on 9 and facing down a board of around 7 to 8 power. Someone in the chat has asked when you could do a cutie cube.
And maybe I'm working out already.
Yeah, a deck full of cuties. Let's go.
So Mike is trying to figure out what to do here.
Yep, he's just thinking, how can I stay alive? Because we are doing some we're doing some maths, and you know when the fingers come out, it's not going to be good. Like, Mike has plenty of stuff in his hands, so he is a little choked on white mana. He does have to lean on this thriving land, and this Azorius Chancery. Granted, it's a white land, but you can't play straight away because it is a bounce land, so it will come into play tapped.
Is that a wasteland?
That is a wasteland, yes. It's the Secret Lair printing. The reason I picked that art because it's got the City of Brass in the background destroyed thanks to the wasteland. I thought it was a nice, flavorful nod. And I'm as you can tell, I'm slowly trying to foil out the cube, and that is like the cheapest foil copy of Wasteland you can get without looking at the Judge promos and the expeditions. So it looks like Mike has just run out this Crystal Shard and an Evolving Wild. Body language doesn't look too great.
I mean, George is stuck on mana.
Yeah, but we have a Path to Exile, and that will be GG. So George Lowry is currently 2-0, and who will likely play Ivan in the next round. So this is going to be really interesting matchup. It's going to be a really interesting matchup just because George has this go wide green-white deck with lots of 1/1s facing up Ivan, who has stuff like Mayhem Devil, who can just chip away these spirit tokens like it's nobody's business. I fancy Ivan to 3-0 based on the matchup, but it depends on if George can just be on the play and have this really aggressive start. Play stuff like Usher of the Fallen, play stuff like Anathem's Kintree Spirit, and bolster the board as much as possible so Mayhem Devil does not become a problem. However, as we both know, Ivan is packed with removal as well. So it'll be really interesting to see how that plays out. So right now we're going to go to a quick break before we do round 3 and we announce our first top 8 competitor of this CUBECon.
Yeah.
So don't go anywhere, and we'll be back soon. Hello and welcome back to CUBECon, where we are in the middle of a top 64 of the event. So there are 8 cubes going on today. And players will need to 3-0 to go into the top 8 of this cube. Today we are covering my Peasant Cube. We have a couple of players that are 2-0, so one more win gets them into the top 8. Very exciting. And yeah, once players are shuffled up and ready to go, we'll get down to the feature match area. So we have a Selesnya go wide tokens deck against Ivan's really strong Rakdos sacrifice deck. So it'll be interesting to see what goes on here.
So George also has sort of like a counter theme going.
Yeah, he has an Anafenza Kin Tree Spirit, which is really good with counters, which we're seeing right now. This is going to be really important because Ivan has cards like Mayhem Devil, which with the sacrifice theme, it can ping a lot of these 1/1 spirit tokens, a lot of these 1/1 creatures that George needs to play in order to go wide. So this is a Blood type Harvester. It's a card that you will see quite a lot in Pioneer, especially in the Rakdos mid-range deck. It is a 3/2 that makes a Blood token, and you can sacrifice Blood type Harvester to give target creature X-X, where X is the twice the number of Blood tokens you control. So it's a 3/2 threat, so it can get aggressive, but you can just pick away something with this Blood token in play. So we'll see what George wants to do here. So he's playing a Porcelain Legionnaire. He's going to take 2 because you never pay the whole 3 mana for a Porcelain Legionnaire. And that is a 3. That's going to be a 40 with First Strike, which is relevant. And then we have a Usher of the Fallen, which will turn into a 3/2.
With those counters, yeah, that's huge.
The bolster on Anafenza is really big here. It seems like George is basically like a mono-white deck splashing green for some cards we saw, such as Rancor, which is really good at getting through that damage with Trample. And it goes back to your hand, so you can just keep replaying it and put it on these creatures. So we're going to sacrifice Blood type Harvester to target Anafenza, but we have a Mutagenic Growth, so George is going to say no to that and give it +2/+2.
That's huge.
That is really huge.
Not expecting that.
No, I wasn't expecting that either, but it makes sense in the strategy George has decided to draft here today. It looks like Ivan has just drawn a Chain Lightning. It's not going to do much. It's going to try again with this Anafenza.
She already did a lot of work.
She's done a lot, and Ivan has also used a lot of resources to deal with the Anafenza. So she's done her work in spades here, and while Ivan is facing down this Porcelain Legionnaire and Usher of the Fallen with a pair of counters on them. And it's important to note here that George was on the play. He did not have a turn 1 play because he did play the Sandsteep Citadel tapped, but he has still managed to produce a really good curve with Anafenza and Porcelain Legionnaire. Plus, that Mutagenic Growth was very well timed. So it looks like George is going to rumble in the red zone because you are essentially the mono-white aggro player at this point.
And no boast.
I think he's going to boast. He's either going to boast now or he's going to do some combat tricks. I think he's going to boast to make the creature token. Boast can only work if the creature attacks.
Right, so second main is when you have to cast that. I mean, use the ability.
Yeah.
Which is great.
Nice soldier token there. Cool. So George is going to do something else here. He's going to play a Basri Solidarity. So this is just like a really simple uncommon that just puts some counters on the creatures that you control.
And those creatures are looking pretty big.
Right, this is it. This Porcelain Legionnaire is looking quite scary because it does have First Strike. And it has higher toughness now as well. So that Mayhem Devil is getting out of range here. This Carrion Feeder's looking kind of sad at the moment.
Aw.
Would you say Carrion Feeder's a cutie? Okay, so we're playing a Lampad of Death's Vigil, which doesn't really do a lot here. It's another sacrifice payoff if Ivan can draw some cards to make it work. So George is hoping to just draw some more aggression and interaction here. So we have a spirited companion. We do have the goodest boy in Magic in play, and George is going to draw a card for his troubles. Now that is a cutie.
Definitely.
Big cutie.
Can't deny that.
Big fan of the spirited companion. Looks like George is doing a really good job of just trying to apply pressure here, just keeping things going and just rumbling in with these threats with a bunch of counters on them. So we're going to boast again with this Usher of the Fallen, just keep progressing this board state.
The Usher's doing a lot of work.
Usher's doing a lot of work, like Anna Fencer's already done a lot of work. Ivan's had to sacrifice a lot of resources just to deal with these cards, but it looks like it's not going to be enough in this game unless Ivan is managing to... this is a really good one.
That's 3 bodies.
3 bodies on a Slingline Lieutenant, and you do have the carrying feeder, so you can buff it up if you can get aggressive. So George is going to cycle this Ash Barrens to get a land out of his deck, probably a forest, just to make sure he can cast those spells.
So that Sling Gang was huge.
That Sling Gang was pretty big. It's going to gum up the board pretty nicely because we do not have Trample right now. George, for all we know, could have a Rancor in hand, and that changes the maths quite a bit. However, as you're playing against the aggro deck, like George has, just having cheap creatures that you can just throw under the bus might be enough to keep you alive here, considering Ivan is on 4 life.
4. Wow.
Yeah.
Feeling the pressure.
He is feeling the pressure, but there is a bunch of ways to gain life in this deck, as we've seen in previous rounds of this cube. Also, Sling Gang Lieutenant does have some life gain themselves. You can sacrifice a goblin to gain 1 life, and an opponent loses 1 life. So there is some things you can do there, just to fade some of the damage that is inevitably going to come Ivan's way. Ivan's just more interested in trying to stay alive here.
Right.
Something that many Magic players have done in the past before.
Right, so he's chumping with these goblins.
Yep. These will probably get sacrificed to Carrion Feeder, or the lamp will be the Carrion Feeder because there is no open mana available. If Ivan just wants to squeeze a few extra life on against this pretty scary board state, let's be honest.
Yeah. Well, and the Sling Gang can sack goblins, right?
Yes, Sling Gang can also sack as well, but George continues to boast with this Usher of the Fallen, keep making tokens, just keep applying the pressure.
I've never seen an Usher do this much work. This is
right.
great.
I've only boasted like once with an Usher, but the fact that it's just generated 3 tokens and it's, you know, a 4-2 or 4-3 in this case is really impressive. Again, a card that you don't expect to be really powerful, but it just, in the right deck, it just does so much. And that mutagenic growth also, saving that Anafenza for a turn was a pretty big deal as well. So what does George have here? We have a Soltari Monk. It is a card with Shadow. A very, very old keyword in Magic of old. It's just a nice little evasive threat. It's something that can wear these enchantments, these auras and these equipments that George Larry has in his deck. He does have things like Rancor, and Soltari Monk has pro-black, and considering, well, it's not pro-black anymore, considering that most of this sacrifice deck does have black creatures, we do have a Murderous Red Cap here as well. That's going to pick off something right now. And this Carrion Feeder can also sacrifice this Murderous Red Cap, so there is another chance that something else could be picked off pretty soon. But Ivan is still on 4 life, so it's going to be a tall order for Ivan to get back into this game.
All right, so George only has the 1 card.
George has the 1 card. It could literally be anything. It could be a land, but
He's doing math.
He's doing his combat maths. And he's, okay, just figuring out the best way to do this. So we're going to go aggro with everything. So we got 2, 4, 6 creatures in the red zone here. So we have a 1/1. We have a 5/3. That's the Possum Legionnaire. We have a 4/2 and a bunch of 1/1s and the Solitary Monk.
Well, and Ivan has to take the damage from the pro black creature.
Yeah.
So effectively, he's at 2 right now.
Yeah. And it depends what else George has in hand. Could be a basic land. I've been there before. It's the only card in my hand, and I keep looking at it, hoping it's something else but a basic land. But it always ends up being that basic land.
Oh, I just like pretend to read it.
Yeah. It's just like, I don't need this basic land. Can it just magically appear as something else? Then I get upset when it doesn't. Like I'm convincing myself. So there's some pretty intricate combat maths and blocking going on here because Ivan is on 4 life and clutching onto dear life right now. But we do have this Murderous Redcap that might be able to do something here. So Ivan has managed to go back up 1 life because Murderous Redcap is a goblin and it does trigger with Slingan, you lieutenant.
Do we know what the red cap is doing damage to?
Don't know yet. It's probably going to do damage to a token because these are 1/1s. Everything else, it can't damage the Solitary Monk because it's pro-black. And doing 2 damage to the 2 creatures with the 2 counters is null and void, so it's just better to pick off these tokens.
Right. He does have 2 cards.
He does. It depends what those 2 cards are. Looks like one of them's a mountain, which is not what you want to see.
Definitely not.
So we're going to go into... So we are playing a Shepherd of the Flock, I believe. Yep. So it's just a free one. Just wanting to end this game as quickly as possible.
Oh, Cutthroat.
So we have a Jury Master Review. It gets stronger. It gains in power every time a creature is sacrificed. It's a really good card in this Rakdos Sacrifice deck. It has more counters the more stuff is sacrificed, and when Jury dies, you can deal damage to, I believe, X creature and X player. Let me just double check the text on that. Based on the amount of counters, based on the power of Jury. Yeah, so it's whenever you sacrifice a permanent. So if, for example, there's like an Evolving Wilds, you can sacrifice that and you will get the counter on it. It applies to like treasure tokens and clue tokens. It's really synergistic. Same also applies to Mayhem Devil. So if you sacrifice the Evolving Wilds, I'm going to ping your creature. So there is a point that this Jury could get our hand, and if you can sacrifice it, that might be the burn spell in this instance that could take George out. But George is in a pretty commanding position here.
Yeah.
With this Usher of the Fallen that has been doing an incredible amount of value, and this Porcelain Legionnaire, which is becoming quite awkward, coupled with the Solitary Monk that is pro-black. So it's basically completely unblockable. So it looks like we're going to sacrifice the red cap to put a counter on Jury and gain a life thanks to Zulaport Cutthroat and drain George for 1. And also we're putting a counter on Carrion Feeder because Carrion Feeder gets a counter for each time you sacrifice a creature to it, but it also can't block.
So Ivan's hanging in there.
He's hanging in there,
but
for dear life.
Yeah.
And Ivan has no cards in hand. So you're clear for any removal, any interaction. It's going to be some shenanigans right now. And you can tell George is just trying to do the maths to see, can I deal the 4 damage to close out this game? Well, 2's going to get through thanks to this Solitary Monk. And George has 2 cards in hand in here. So hopefully we'll have some interaction and some answers during blocks.
Ooh.
So right now, Ivan has taken 3, going to 1, because we've got this 1/1 soldier and this 2/2 Solitary Monk.
He can activate the Lombard.
He can activate the Lampard. He can also activate the Carrion Feeder. which will trigger sort of Port Cutthroat. That might fade a little bit of damage here. But Ivan is slowly running out of resources to stay alive. So Ivan's going to sacrifice Zulaport Cutthroat to Jury, I believe. Put it up to 4 power, so it does block the Shepherd of the Flock. And you gain 1 life off the Zulaport Cutthroat. You have no more ways to gain life, unfortunately, so this is going to be a tricky order. It looks like George has some responses here. Oh, no, he's just going to boast with Usher of the Fallen. Just keep that steady stream of threats. Okay, so Ivan has gone down to 3.
Oh,
Getting pretty clutch here. I'm not sure what else Ivan can draw to get out of this situation. Apparently he's drawn a spell. We're going to have a Bastion of Remembrance. This is a really nice one. It makes a token, and it does create some life gain in a pinch. Bastion of Remembrance is it's not like the most it's not like the most important of sacrifice cards, but it's just a nice option to have. It creates a token, and it does this Zulaport Cutthroat thing of where you gain a life and your opponent loses a life, whatever creature you can put on. And eventually you can just stack them all up and just have these crazy life point swings.
so he's attacking here?
Well, Carrion Feeder can't block, so...
Right. But Jury's also going in.
Yeah. And he can sacrifice Jury to deal, right now, 5 damage to George. So you sacrifice Jury, deal damage, and it kills him.
Wow.
What's with the game 1 handshake? See, that's the thing with Rakdos Sacrifice. It's a deck that, yeah, Ivan was on the back foot for a good amount of that game, right? But there's just these fine margins and fine lines like, can I sneak in this extra few points of damage? And Jury, as I mentioned earlier, became a burn spell, just dealt 5 damage to the opponent there. And unsurprisingly, Rakdos Sacrifice continues to do well. And Ivan is playing really well, just acknowledging, like, trying to stem the bleeding of this aggressive white deck, just thinking, what are my outs? How can I live? And he got there, even with, Zulaport Cutthroat and Bastion of Remembrance just gaining, like, the 2 to 3 points of life that he needed to survive there.
That really adds up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can tell Ivan really enjoys these decks because there's a lot of fine lines that I would not be smart enough to do it. My brain is not smooth enough for this style of deck, but it's really cool just to see someone who was the previous top 8 competitor of CUBECON of last year, who's looking likely to run that back this year, just playing a strategy that has a lot of nuances and is really interesting to play.
Yeah.
So
It's fun to watch. I like the deck a lot.
I really like the deck a lot. Sacrifice is just a really fun thing. It's powerful, but it rewards you for knowing all the nuances when it comes to the rules. So yeah, hopefully, maybe Ivan needs to win 1 more game, then he will be our Peasant Cube champion and then our top 8 competitor for the Cube draft later on this afternoon. Shall we talk about one of our sponsors? Sure. So you should check out CubeHeads. So CubeHeads is ran by this guy called Steve, who was at CubeCon here this weekend. He is someone that absolutely loves Cube, but he's not focused on the cube themselves. Don't get me wrong, he will play the cubes, but he's more interested in the people behind the cubes. So he has been interviewing people all weekend. He's looking to interview me at some point, so I get to gush about Peasant Cube, which is great. He has a really fun YouTube channel where he just talks about the cube curators that, create these cubes. Why do they love Cube? You should check that on YouTube. Steve is great, and Cube has, as we can see right now, the Cube community is great. There's just so many people that have come out to Madison, Wisconsin this weekend just to play Cube. And play Cube with strangers. It's not like a Commander thing where it's just like you're playing with the same group of people. You're meeting like-minded people and trying out different cubes. And Steve does a really good job of harnessing that and just saying, hey, what do you love about Cube? What's your favorite thing about it? And people talk about it. It's great. What do you love about Cube?
I guess the challenge of it.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
And like just seeing old cards, like it's so nostalgic.
Yes. I love playing Cube because sometimes I see a card I haven't seen before and I'm like, holy moly, this is great. I want this in my cube. Or see like a cool interaction that I've never considered about before. So yeah, there's a lot to like about Cube. I think it's the best Magic format by far. And I'm not just saying that because I'm here. I think it's genuinely a great format. Okay, so we're going to head down back to the play area where Ivan needs to win one more, and if he wins one more, he will be the champion of this Peasant Cube and will lock his place in the top 8 of CUBECON once again. Back-to-back top 8s is an impressive feat for an event like this. So it looks like George has a bunch of cards here. I don't think he's flipped one of the Zendikar DFCs back. So one of those is going to be a white spell from Zendikar Rising, because I believe it's still on the land side, which it shouldn't be. But also George would be on the play here, which is pretty good for an aggro deck. He was on the play last turn, but he did play that Sunstep Citadel first, but it didn't really matter because he managed to apply a bunch of aggression due to that Anafenza Kin Tree Spirit. So Ivan's going to go to 6 here, which we've seen quite a lot today.
Honestly, it's not that bad to mull to 6 with this mulligan rule.
Right. This is London Mulligan has changed how mulliganing has worked in Limited. I imagine you really enjoy it as a Limited player.
It's great, yeah.
It makes games much smoother. It makes playing stuff like Cube much smoother. Hell, it's made games like decks in Modern much better. Like Mono Green Tron became so much better because you can just sculpt these hands that allow you to turn free Tron, which is great because I'm a big Tron fan. So anything that makes my life easier is also great. But no, as we've seen, Ivan has mulliganed a lot in this this whole cube, and it's just a testament to mulliganing is really hard. I think it's one of the hardest things to master in Magic, and the fact that you can just go, yeah, I'm going to trade this average 7 for a better 6 is sometimes quite hard to do. So George has played a Dryad Militant here, and Ivan has responded with a Carrion Feeder on turn 1, which is a which is a really strong start if you are the Sacrifice deck. Trying to see what else is in George's hand here. I see a couple of lands. I see a Dryad Militant that's going to rumble in the red zone because Carrion Feeder cannot block. I see a Mishra's Factory, which is not the kind of land you want to see so early on. That says to me George doesn't really have a lot of
there's a
creatures. There's a Zolopot Cutthroat. So Ivan is looking to establish this sacrifice engine that we have seen so many times in the previous rounds. So I need to see what this is because he forgot to flip it on the other side. Sure.
Is that takedown?
It's takedown, yeah. It just wasn't flipped back from the last game. So we're going to take down something here. But in response, Ivan's going to sacrifice a Zolopot Cutthroat to Carrion Feeder just to gain that extra counter. And I appreciate Ivan flattening my double sleeve cards.
Oh no. Turn 3 play.
Oh no. Oh, he's going to animate Mishra's Factory. Which is not which Ivan will be kind of happy to see because he's not going wide with these creatures that we saw in the last round, last game, where we saw this Anavenza, we saw this Usher of the Fallen that generated like 3 to 4 tokens. So Ivan will be really happy just to see George just attacking with this Mishra's Factory.
So Ivan passed with 3 mana up as well.
Yep, but we do know Ivan has a lot of interaction. We've seen Firebolts, we've seen Heroes Downfalls. We've seen a bunch of removal from Ivan, so he's just looking to keep this board as clean as possible. Speaking of whom, we have the Anafenza Kin Tree Spirit that showed an impressive show last game. So Ivan's drawing a lot of lands, which is not something you really want to see out the Sacrifice deck. I believe there's another land in hand as well, but we do have a Skin Render, which is going to make short work of this Anafenza. But there is going to be a response here. So George just casted a Snakeskin Veil, which is a combat trick that gives your creature indestructible, hexproof, and a +1/+1 counter. Oh, it's just hexproof, not indestructible, my bad. Those effects all sound the same. I'm going to be honest. There's 1 mana green spells. They all do very similar things.
Only 2 cards left.
Yep. It's like this Mistress Factory's rumbling in once again, because the only way to win is to lower the life total of your opponent. So it looks like Skin Render's going to do some chump blocking here, but George does have the mutagenic growth to not only grow Anafenza, but to make short work of this Skin Render. Looks like we have a Citizen's Crowbar, which does a nice job of gumming up the board. And look, right now, George looks to be in a really good position despite despite having no cards in hand. Be interesting to see if there are any responses here. Also, we have a Beetlebat Chief, which is a really nice top deck because it does make a bunch of Goblin tokens. And Carrion Feed is going to get in because it can't block, so you may as well attack with it.
So he does have other goblins for the Siege Gang.
Yeah. There is... The Sacrifice deck does have a little goblins, like a goblin sub-theme. Not intentionally, but a lot of the good sack cards tend to be goblins. And goblin tokens tend to be quite good here.
Ooh.
So it looks like George is putting a bunch of counters and stuff thanks to that Basri Solidarity. He cleverly animated the Mistress Factory first, so that land also gets a counter in combat.
The Carrion Feeder is quite large.
Yep, this is what happens. And this Carrion Feeder is going to be able to go on the crackback, even though Ivan is on 6. It's a lot of lands from the Sacrifice player, which is not what you want to see. So we do have a Judas Scourge Diva that is going to give 1 extra power to this Carrion Feeder. You don't really want to play Judith defensively either. It's not the style of card. So this Carrion Feeder is going to get in. It's going to get in for a whole bunch of damage here. It's going to put George down to 8. And we'll see if George can top deck anything here. So that is a Thraben Inspector, one of the best Magic cards you'll ever see. It's not quite what George wants to see here. He wants something a little more impactful, but he can trade the clue for more card draw. Looks like he's going to crack that clue straight away. Hopefully draw something that can impact the board and close out this game as Ivan is on 6. So we have that Usher of the Fallen, which we saw in the last game that generated an impressive amount of tokens. And thanks to this Anafenza Kintree Spirit, it will gain an extra counter due to Bolster.
I'm very impressed with Anafenza.
Yes, that was a really cool downshift. I'm very thankful for Commander Masters to give me more headaches to think about when it comes to my Peasant Cube. And it's just really nice to have like a signpost uncommon that really rewards you for playing like a mono white weenie aggro style deck. And there is a really good counter synergy in this queue because you have stuff like Conclave Mentor and Winding Constrictor that can just manipulate all these counters and do other cool things. And Anafenza is just a nice little addition to that game plan as well. So we're seeing what Ivan's going to do here. He is going down to 3, I believe. Yep, he's down to 3, but we've seen him down to 3 before and he managed to survive. I see an Unearth in hand here.
Oh,
that is gonna fire off. Or he's going to cycle it.
Oh.
That's also completely fine. Because unfortunately, Unearth can't get back the Beetleback Chief, which is what Ivan would have really liked here. See what Ivan can do to get out of this situation. And it's like last game, Ivan managed to dig out of it before. Let's see if we can do it again.
Well, with 2 blockers, though, I don't think.
So the carrying feed is going to get in because it is a pretty big threat. And it looks like Ivan's decided to scoop it up. And we're going to go to game 3. And the next game is going to decide who is the champion of this cube. And also the first person to go into the top 8 of this CUBECON event. It's looking pretty close, isn't it?
Yeah, I love when games go to game 3.
Yep, that's my favorite. That's my favorite thing too, because it means we can bring you more Magic as well as more Cube. So stick around. We've got one more game to go, and we'll have an interview with the winner of this draft, who you will see in the top 8 of CUBECON very, very soon. So don't go anywhere. If production can flag it away, that would be great. There we go. So George is on the draw now, which is going to be a problem with the fact that he is a mono white aggro deck. Be interested to see what Ivan can draw here to just try and capitalize on this. Perhaps have an aggressive curve that we saw in the first round where he drew nothing but 1-drop, 2-drop Judith into Murderous Redcap. That would be really good. But we'll have to see. George has a lot of good protection spells to mitigate Ivan's removal. We saw the Mutagenic Growth and the Snakeskin Bell, which are all very awkward for Ivan to deal with.
It's a great matchup.
It is a really good matchup. It's not as one-sided as I thought it would be, because George does have a lot of X1s, but he also has a bunch of ways to add counters to his creatures, thanks to Anafenza and that Basri Solidarity.
So he can go wide and tall.
Yeah, that's important. Like, going wide is great usually, but when you're facing down a Mayhem Devil, it gets a little awkward. But the fact that he can just add like a second toughness, the fact that's like an X2 is really relevant in this matchup. So we'll let players shuffle up and find their hands. Hopefully we'll have some nice strong 7s here and a nice back and forth game of Magic. Looks like Ivan's going to do some pile shuffling just to make sure everything's all good and his deck is counted correctly. And there'll be a little bit of small talk before a very, very important game 3 that whoever wins this game will be in the top 8 of CUBECON. And I know Ivan is very, very eager to be back there once again, as he was the top 8 in CUBECON last year.
They both seem pretty calm, cool, and collected.
Yeah, right. I would be sweating right now. I would just be like all over the place. I don't know how these people do it. Even though this is like CUBECON, it's not like a Pro Tour. Even though I would be terrible at a Pro Tour, it's just like, I don't know how these people can just stay so calm. Be interesting to see what the top 8 is in this CUBECON, because Reduke is out of contention, as is Caleb Durwood. Caleb lost a round in the cube that he was playing in earlier today. Hopefully Dom Harvey and Sam Black can trio, because that would make a really impressive top 8. But we'll see how that's going soon. So, very similar to before, Ivan has a carrion feeder on turn 1 that's going to get aggressive, because George doesn't want to trade this Usher of the Fallen, which can take over a game for this creature.
Definitely. Probably going to boast here unless he has something really strong to play.
So we have a Rancor in hand here. We have a Mutagenic Growth, which we've seen do really well in previous games. We have a Porcelain Legionnaire, which is a nice aggressive option. Yeah. I also see a Quasali Pride Mage, which is going to have some nice exalted effects as well. Looks like Ivan is acknowledging how good Usher of the Fallen has been in this matchup and decides to just go for the throw tip on resolution.
He's like, not again.
Yeah.
Is this the Spirited Companion?
That is a Spirited Companion that's going to come down and draw a card. So hopefully George can find an untapped green source, which he has. I do see a Treetop Village in hand as well. And a Rancor, which is going to be pretty nice on this Porcelain Legionnaire.
That's huge.
Yeah. It is still an X1, but it's going to be a pretty big X1. It's like a 6-1 right now. It's basically a ball lightning at this rate. So we see a Midnight Haunting, which is going to produce some spirit tokens at some point for George, as well as this Quasari Primate, which rewards you for attacking with one creature.
And Ivan missed a land drop.
Ivan missed a land drop, and more importantly, a red mana drop as well. So he is strangled for red mana, which is unfortunate, something you don't want to see in the final game of this cube, which will determine who will be in the top 8 of CubeCon this afternoon. So George has some nice answers here. He also has a Path to Exile, but knowing George, you should probably not fire that off because that will give Ivan the mana needed to cast his spells. And more importantly, give him that give him that mountain. So this Porcelain Legionnaire is going in for 6 thanks to Exalted. And it's looking like a pretty devastating clock. So, Ivan drew a land, but it's not the land he needs because clearly I'm going to assume he needs some red cards to cast his spells. And now George is in the position of, can I kill my opponent this turn? There's a bunch of stuff he can do. He's got some removal spells. He has this Mutagenic Growth, which is pretty close to lethal, thanks to this this Porcelain Legionnaire. So we're going to go in with everything. Wow. Send in the clowns.
And Ivan only has 1 blocker.
Yeah, just this Carrion Feeder cannot block. It kind of sucks when this happens, when Ivan is not be able to get that mountain. And he had a bunch of red cards, the Mayhem Devil, and then, yeah, that's a shame. Ivan drafted a really sweet deck, but sometimes all you need is that 1-2 curve from the white player. So congratulations to George, who will be our first confirmed top 8 competitor for CubeCon this year.
That is so exciting.
It is exciting.
Oh
and he gets to draft the vintage cube. So he actually gets to hold physical power if he opens it in this cube. There are no proxies at this event. So it's going to be really exciting to see George and 7 other players that we'll find out soon who will be in that top 8 of CubeCon. So we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll have an interview with George and we'll talk about his draft, how he feels about the Peasant Cube, and what kind of picks he took, and what made him decide to go into this white splashing green aggro deck. So be back soon. Hello. So we are back with the trophy winner of my Peasant Cube. We've got George here, who has locked themselves into a top 8, into the top 8 of CubeCon this year. How are you feeling? You must be buzzing.
I know. It's honestly a little too much to take right now, so I don't feel all the positivity yet, but it's flowing in.
I imagine when you sit down to draft that cube with 7 other people, and it's Magic Online Vintage Cube, where you get to draft some physical power in person, it's going to be so exciting.
It's pretty exciting. Yeah.
So talk to me about your draft. Like, what was your first pick? What did you open? Why did you decide like this white-green aggro deck?
Yeah, absolutely. So my first pick was Rancor.
Okay.
I took it. It's just a generically powerful card. Resilient to removal. So in a deck where you want to be attacking, it's a great way to get in with trample.
Yep.
I'll be honest, I know that generally in these types of cubes, red-white are where the aggro decks are.
Yes.
So I was kind of confused. Hey, a green aggressive card, where does that fit in?
Yeah.
And then so I was kind of pivoting more towards white as I was getting packs and getting these kind of cheap aggressive creatures getting passed. The big signal for me was when I saw a Thraben Inspector on like a 6th or 7th pick. So I figured...
what the hell?
I know. And there was a Blink deck in there. So I figured it must have been another good card in the pack. No shade on anyone else. But I figured, okay, if I can get Thraben Inspector on the wheel, that probably means there's going to be enough white cards flowing.
Sure.
Turns up pack 3, I did get a pack where I had 2 aggressive creatures, took one, got the other one on the wheel.
Okay.
So that worked out really well.
Nice.
I wasn't planning on being in green because I figured mono white, you get a much more consistent mana base to get those 1-drops.
For sure.
But I missed playables, so I had no choice. And then it turned out to be a blessing in disguise. Turns out,
the Snakeskin Veil was like great for you. It turned out a clutch in a couple of those games, and you had stuff like the Ash Barrens, you had the Sandsteve Citadel, which just allowed you to do this little splash if you needed. I will say that Anafenza Kintree Spirit kind of took away that whole cube, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if you panned over to my game in the second match, but I had a game where I went Anafenza into the Conclave and just had 2 counters on everything.
Oh, that sounds sick.
It really let me get in there. With the big dice, it felt nice too.
Yeah, for sure. And what's really important about your deck that you drafted today, this Ragdoll Sacrifice deck is really good at chipping away at these X1s, which a lot of aggro decks have. You have a lot of these Spirit tokens.
Absolutely.
And the fact that you can go tall as well as wide, thanks to Anafenza and this Badgery Solidarity, it just means you can keep applying this pressure and keep putting them on the back foot, which is really great to see.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I feel bad. Obviously, my opponent very mana screwed in the third game.
Yeah, you can't do much about it.
Can't do much about that.
It kind of sucks,
And
but it is what it is.
And unfortunately, my deck is not one that's going to give you time to recover from that. So,
Right, this is it.
double mana land draw. I decided to commit to the full attack there, and worked out well.
That was enough. So, yeah, congratulations.
Thanks.
Who are you hoping to see in the top 8? Is there anyone you want to play against?
Ooh.
Like I know Reed's obviously out. I know Caleb's is not going to be able to make it. So,
Gotcha.
Is there anyone who you think that is in the top 64 that you would love to play in this Vintage Cube?
Honestly, I got some more Madison people out there, I'm sure, I would love to see. But Wan Shi is a player who did really well yesterday. I had the pleasure of playing against them in Creatureless Cube. And just a super positive guy, very, excited about plays on both sides.
Yes.
So I'd love to get to draft and talk to them more.
No, that's sick.
Yeah.
So yeah, like just to wrap up quickly, obviously you being in the top 8 is going to be a big moment for you. It's probably a highlight.
Absolutely.
Probably be another highlight if you win it later on. What have you really enjoyed about this weekend? Because CubeCon is like a really community-focused thing. Like there's a lot of people, like as we can see right now, who are just open play cubing. So what has been a big enjoyment for you this weekend?
I gotta say the community is, you're absolutely right, is the big focus. I don't know if you can see from my jersey today, but
there's a bunch of you with the same jersey,
absolutely.
by the way. There's like an army of you.
My buddy Elliot, I knew since college. He moved out here, and I was shout out to Elliot. I was he brought me into the Magic scene that was in Madison,
Oh, cool.
and I got introduced to people like Dan, BK, all these folks that are just
BK's
super into the Magic community, and Dan building the Discord to just kind of get games going, get drafts going. I've had the privilege of drafting a lot of Cube, thanks to the group, and really just getting to see them all here and finding them around.
I'm convinced Madison's the most cracked Cube city in the world. I don't think there's anywhere that can quite beat it.
It's a brewer's paradise.
It is the brewer's paradise because you have people like yourself, you have people like the crew, Caleb and Sam Black, and it's just I don't know how we're beating these people. Like we did the England versus Wisconsin match the other day, and Grant, we came close, but it's like they're pretty intimidating. They're a pretty scary bunch. But either way, congratulations.
Thanks so much.
Enjoy playing some Vintage Cube, which is
I will.
It's going to be great to say. Be sure to tune in. We will do the top 8 fairly soonish. I think we're going to have a break while these other cubes are wrapping up, and then we'll have our top 8.
Awesome.
So thank you very much.
Hey, thank you so much,
No
guys.
worries.
Really appreciate the chance.
No
And
and thank you for enjoying my cube. It means a lot.
Oh, absolutely. Thanks for bringing it. It was a
No
pleasure.
worries. Hang around, and we'll be back pretty soon.